sun and the biggest sky, greenest hills that I have ever seen. These old stone walls and the ones they're holding, the only place I want to be.
Welcome to God is Open. I am your host, Christopher Fisher. Today on God is Open, we are doing a debate watch party. It's the middle of the day, so why not do some day drinking? And so I got some bourbon here, so we'll do some day drink. I got it on the rocks. I'm doing on the rocks today because you need your hydration. You can't always just be dehydrated. You got to get your water intake. And so, fantastic. Yeah, I think the debate is not started yet. So the plan for this debate is for this watch party is to try to add substantive commentary as well. So it can't be just like we sit here and just watch it, not talking. So if we pause to make commentary, then we'll play it on like 1.5 speed to try to catch up to wherever it is. So then we could add some substantive stuff. And so my predictions for this debate are it's going to be an interesting debate. I think Drew might not know what he's getting into here because Israel seems to be way deep into all sorts of formulaic metaphysics. And so he likes to talk, and he likes to talk without substance, or he just likes to try to make these long convoluted points that he thinks are intelligent. And so that's what I'm predicting. I've warned him, and he personally acknowledged me when I said that he can't be doing that. He needs to not lose his argument. But I think he was like pressing the debate moderator to do like 25-minute openings. And like you can't that's like listening to an entire podcast. You can't do 25-minute openings. Everyone's going to be lost. People don't have that attention span. You can't four times speed or bust. So no comprehension whatsoever. We'll just lose it all. But yeah, so I think Israel. Oh, what I also learned is like Israel want to remove rebuttal rounds and just have like these alternating things. And so maybe he plans to just not rebut anything that Drew Mack says, and he just wants to just keep rolling with more of his points and just have like a punctuated sermonette punctuated by Drew Mack's points. Maybe that's what's going on here. And so I told Drew, I said, hey, maybe when it gets to questions and answers, that's going to be my question. I'll say, hey, Israel, did you ask the moderator not to do rebuttal rounds? Did you press against a rebuttal round? That would be pretty funny. And so then he could just say yes or no. It's like you need rebuttal rounds. You need a back and forth. You need some sort of interaction, or else two people, like you could just do dueling podcasts if you're just talking past each other. You need some sort of interaction, and the interaction's the best part. So that's always everyone's favorite parts of the debate. It's my favorite part of the debate is when you're actually going back and forth. And if you have a good moderator, they could control the back and forth so that one party's not super dominating and just asking all the questions. Like I always get the biased moderators who don't like me, and like Marlon Wilson, like he was favoring Slick, and then what's that guy? Kingdom in Context, his debate with Anthony Rogers, he just let Anthony Rogers just rip on the guy. So I'm probably not going to ever find a perfect debate moderator, but there are some decent ones out there, and I've had some decent debates with decent debate moderators. Steven says, I hope this debate is Israel just taking turns reading a 200-page paper. Oh man, that would be actually really fantastic. Because everyone will be lost. Like you need to be accessible. You need to work on accessibility. And they still haven't started yet. So I'm going to hit refresh over here on our shared screen, and we'll see if it's started up or not. I don't know. Idle Killer's over there talking. He ignored me. I sent him an invite for this. He's like, no, I don't want to go on your stupid channel. I don't want to be associated with you. He didn't say that. I just made that up. He says, I don't have tacos, but I'm eating chips and queso. I got chips somewhere. I don't know. But, okay, so determinism. So what is Israel going to argue? I don't think Israel's going to be arguing so much from the Bible. And he got he got the debate title changed. Israel did from is does the Bible teach determinism? He got it changed to is determinism biblical? And he did it without Drew Mack knowing. And so Drew was like, "What? The title changed? Where did that come from?" Because I feel like Israel, and he's trying to think through this. He's like, "Oh no, I don't actually have arguments that the Bible teaches determinism," and so the best I can hope for is determinism being compatible with the biblical data. And so I think that's why it's phrased the way it is. And so Drew's just getting the runaround in this debate. It's still not loaded. uh, but so it's just a bundle of surprises so far. But determinism, the Bible doesn't teach determinism. Every single page screams against it. I'm willing to take a debate with a Calvinist where we put the Bible and have a random page number generator and and then have like the Bibles with the page numbers and then argue our positions from any random Bible page that comes up on the random generator, because you can make a pretty decent case from almost anywhere, unless you're very unlucky, almost anywhere that open theism is taught within whatever random text that you pull out. As long as the text is talking about God, you have God thinking, you got God's internal monologue, you got God interacting with people and changing his mind and adapting to circumstances and taking new actions, like just throughout the Bible. So any random passage about God is pretty good evidence for open theism and against the classical attributes. they're late on their own show. I'm going to hit refresh again. Judge Rightly says, I'm down for that. You're going to argue against me? Okay, so one thing we should do is we should promote this channel as well, Standing for the Truth. If you guys could jump over there and then hit like or something, and then like give them temporary viewer numbers to just increase that algorithm, and so that we're not really stealing super amounts of views from them on our watch channel. We don't want to be doing that, but I think we are we're outnumbering them right now, and so hopefully this will be good. As long as the debate is framed or properly framed, the open theists will decimate. Yeah, absolutely. And so if the debate's about the Bible, if it's about abstract philosophy, the open theist will probably do good if they are someone like Richard Swinburne type or something like that, who is deep into the weeds on that. And like an Alan Rhoda, they'll probably do fine, but it won't be as decisive as a biblically based debate about what does the Bible teach. That's where open theism, that's our strong hammer for arguing in debates. The philosophy, you could take it or leave it, and it's like it gets into this weird like when I went to the randomness conference, everyone was putting formulas on the board, even open theists. Here's my formula for how God works, and he's just like writing equations on this blackboard. It's like I don't I don't think it works like that. I don't think what are we doing here? We're trying to build metaphysical physics formulas that God operates by. I just that feels like the wrong way of doing theology and the wrong way of conceptualizing the world. Maybe some formulas work as good rules of thumb, but not always and forever. And then when you get people with individual volition involved, like God, who has an individual volition, then these formulas fall apart. I would also take that debate. If there's a debate about if any person's random formula works, like Matt Slick in his debate with me, he's like, well, sin leads to death and everyone dies. I'm like, well, like Enoch and Elijah didn't die. And then he's just like, there's like these little counter examples. And so like, even with like atonement, it's like, well, Isaiah, he was able to see God because he had a burning coal that that forgave his sins, And he's like, ah. And so like people have to be like, well, that coal was Jesus before Jesus died. It was like it was taking Jesus's death before Jesus's death to forgive his sins, allowing him to. It's like, no, it's the Bible has a lot of counterexamples that are going to foil anyone's systematics, where they're trying to build these very nice and neat formulas for how reality works. There's going to be counterexamples in the Bible because they didn't think in these terms, and there's loose terms about how things work, atonement, blood sacrifice, and things like that. But there's not defined formulas. You're not going to find that. So I'll take that debate as well. Maybe the debate will be your atonement theory is not taught in the Bible, and then I'll just take whatever random person is has whatever atonement theory, and that might be good. Oh, there's Warren. He popped over to our channel to say I was just bad mouthing you. You just missed me. I was criticizing you, mostly your weight. That's what I do. Pre-debate chicanery by Calvinists. No way. Well, yeah, it's interesting. I don't think Israel. I probably shouldn't say it, but I out of the 4 Calvinists on that channel, he's probably not. I don't know, the most intellectually rigorous of the 4. He's not the least intellectually rigorous. It's CJ. That's a spoiler. CJ is that. It's still not going. We are 8 minutes over. I'm going to refresh. Roll it. Who knew that Warren had this capacity for slick burns? Izzy doesn't make a top 10 in a room where he's alone. Uh-oh, now it's spinning on me. And so I hope my internet holds out. Should. Brian wants me to use 15 seconds to talk about the 4 generations in Egypt. I don't think all those lists of names of who had who are a very good guide. I think sometimes they skip names. And so I don't think the genealogies are the best way to figure out years in the Bible, because I think it's common practice to skip unimportant people. Adam asks what kind of bourbon. Of course, I'm a very cheap man. I don't have very much money, so I always get the Jim Beam at Sam's Club, where it's like $20 for this big bottle. And so that's look, he's on the screen. Okay, let's jump over there.
Mac from the provisionist perspective, and we are going to be engaging a debate on the question. There he is. Good to have you, Israel. The question is determinism biblical? Israel takes the affirmative and Drew takes the negative for tonight's debate. And I got to say, I am thrilled to have these gentlemen, these 2 true professionals here to interact with this important and very controversial in many ways topic. And it's also always great to have new faces, fresh faces for the Standing for Truth debate platform. And so for both our guests tonight, Israel and Drew, firstly, certainly not your first time engaging.
Yeah, he actually has some debates that have a ton of views, like 70,000 views. And so it is interesting to see the different viewership of the various debates.
For a couple hours. So if we could, let's get acquainted, break the ice a little bit, get to know you guys for anybody in the audience who might be unfamiliar with who you guys are. Israel, let's start with you. Firstly, I hope your 2025 is going well. Tell us, how are you today? And tell us a little bit about yourself and your channel and what you do.
Man, it is going great. Actually, like I just got the notice this year that I'll be a dad, so it's fantastic. And yeah, today I was actually supposed to get the gender reveal, but yeah, no, I guess it was a little bit too soon for what the doctor said, but whatever. And yeah, a little bit about me. So I'm Israel Trujillo. My last name is just pronounced terribly out there, so it's normal that it's really pronounced well. But yeah, anyway, so what I do, I work for Rachel Christie. I do campus ministry, and for example, like today, we had a class.
Well, welcome, Warren. You're able to watch this live debate. Fantastic. So Israel's telling us about himself. He said he works at a church. I don't think he's a paid pastor. I think that came up in discussions, but
nothing wrong with that.
Well,
okay, the best pastors work for free.
There is nothing wrong with
vocational pastoring.
I'm not. I was just reading for church. They were going over Thessalonians, and so I read 1st and 2nd Thessalonians, and Paul's talking about how he's like, we didn't get any money from you guys when we were there. We're just working ourselves, and we're not taking your guys' stuff, because that shows intellectual integrity and honesty and stuff like that. So it's not bad to take Paul's example and not take money from people. He's trying to show his goodwill.
And let's face it. I mean, people pay money for a lot of ridiculous things. So, I don't think value is attributed. I mean, look at how much John MacArthur makes. I mean, like, it's not a sign of solid teaching.
I like John MacArthur. He was one of the only people to press back against all the COVID insanity. He's done a lot of good things. And so,
oh yeah, he's not wholly evil. I mean, but like, I'm not saying he's like completely and utterly depraved. Just totally depraved, not
yeah. He's just a partial depravity.
Yeah,
partial depravity. Okay, we'll jump back to Israel here.
My wife is Pentecostal. My parents are Pentecostal. And yeah, we have a Pentecostal elder, and yeah, pretty much we don't try to convert each other, and we have an open soteriology actually. So yeah, I'm very tolerant of other traditions. I'm just not very tolerant of the hate spread online, and but yeah, some animosity. That's it. And yeah, those are that is the things I do.
What hate is he talking about?
Is that the hate he spreads?
Maybe. Yeah. I don't know if that's like political. Maybe he's like an.
Congratulations to Izzy on becoming a dad, though. I heard that.
Yeah,
before I came on. That's awesome.
That's fantastic. Once you have kids, then you grow up just a little bit. You just
hopefully he'll start to see what it's like to know what love is through the eyes of a father rather than a child. Yeah, that might change his perspective a little bit on God, and he might go, "Why did God use this analogy to describe himself? Like, what's going on here?"
Yeah, and maybe they'll give him new eyes, and so maybe they'll cut down on some of Calvinist talking points, like, if it's okay to cut your kids off, or like, maybe I'll increase familial bonds.
Yeah,
maybe
that'd be good.
This perspective.
Yeah, so I'm I'm Drew Mack. Our 2025 has been pretty riddled with sickness. It feels like so far. My wife's going through it right now, and I'm fighting it off. It seems like successfully, but you'll see me drinking a lot of water here tonight and stuff. So my wife's actually from New Zealand. I'm originally from the US, from North Carolina. So twitchy theologian Jared Duckworth and I have had some conversations on our channel recently. We have that in common. We're both from North Carolina. But I currently live and work just outside Madrid, Spain. And provisionist perspective, we focus a lot on soteriology and theology, mostly promoting and defending God's love and provision for everyone, but we do go off the script every now and again. Obviously, we're going to continuously speak from our own provisionist perspective, but as a for instance, we're having a upcoming author interview with a brother named Brent Hansen, which I'm really looking forward to, about anger and being offended and that sort of stuff. So it should be a good time. And yeah, that's us. You can find us at provisionistperspective.com or on YouTube, and that's where we are.
Okay, very good, Drew. Appreciate your introduction, and appreciate the introductions from the both of you. I will make sure for.
Yeah, so Drew's a pretty nice guy. I've known him for a while, and you met him in person.
He's the worst.
He's
no,
the worst.
I've met Drew in real life.
Yeah, did he stay at your house?
He did. He spent the night at my house a couple nights. Yeah,
yeah, and so that's always fun. So I'll have to try to make a trip out there sometime.
One, he's kind. Two, he seems to be very genuine and sincere. And three, he's a good house guest. He cleans up after himself, is very respectful. So, yeah.
Unlike me, I'm the worst house guest.
Get your slides up, and we will jump right into 20-minute opening statements. My bad. We do have 20-minute opening statements, not 15.
Oh, man.
And so, okay.
And slides. They got slides too.
Is yours.
Amateur hour.
Oh, and then just make sure to unmute when you're
talking. When you're talking, unmute.
Oh, sorry about that. So
problem.
before we start, I just have one question. So, I thought we were gonna mention the debate standards. Do you agree to the debate standards, Drew?
What is this?
We cannot hear you. We cannot hear you.
You sent us something a while back that I've not looked at in some time, so I can't really say yay or nay on that. I mean, like we've agreed, is determinism biblical? And we also talked together about how we would understand.
Is Israel going to walk out if he says?
What Izzy's trying to do is pack the debate.
Yeah, I guess
everything.
He's trying to pack the debate. He's trying to front load it.
He's been doing that a lot on this one.
The winner, and I actually sent it to you about 4 times, and you looked at it. I was just surprised that you never ever respond. So I just wasn't sure if we were actually gonna go over that before debate starts. Because you're already putting a debate review that you're going to
moderate and debate.
Here's our debate. Here's our terms and conditions. Like what is this?
He wants to moderate and debate.
Oh man,
pretty much. Because it's weird that I'm already refuted without even starting.
In order for us to move along smoothly, what we can do, just based on the conversation that we had over the course of the last couple months, it looks like everybody did agree and was okay with the debate standard. So we'll just give an affirmative on that, and then maybe just move into our opening statement.
Oh, okay.
Israel, and then.
Yeah, I guess I'll keep it in mind for future debate reviews that we're going to see from both sides. So apparently it's going to be a review war. But yeah, anyways.
What is going on?
I'm ready in 3 seconds.
I don't really care enough
to
do anything more on this at this point.
Well, maybe it'll be so terrible that I think he's setting himself up to lose. He thinks he's going to lose this, and so he wants to put these debate standards out there to give him some sort of edge to like damage mitigation. I think he's been in full damage mitigation for a while.
Early, yeah.
Person with 2 wills. Premise 2: Christ's human will fully represents the human experience in every way. This is biblical language, every way. Premise 3: If Christ has a human will that fully represents the human experience in every way, then his human will must operate as our will does. Premise 4: Christ's human will was necessarily aligned with the divine will.
This is my favorite Bible verse, by the way.
Premise 5: If Christ's human will was necessarily aligned with the divine will,
this is my favorite Bible verse.
Was not free in the libertarian.
Yeah, which like what? Remember your joke? It's like premise 27 subpoint B. It's like, oh no, we said not to do this.
Determinism is biblical. Now hold on, let me build out a robust 27-point syllogism on why my philosophy is tenable. It's like,
okay, there's 7 points. Okay,
we'll see it as a defense of premise 5, which is going to be the most controversial. So premise one, so Christ is one person with two wills. So it's a conclusion of the Third Council of Constantinople. So denying it is the monothelic heresy. Also, Chalcedon in 451 defines that Christ has two complete natures.
Okay, do you know what life was like 100 years ago? Not really, right? And so why are we quoting something 400 years after Jesus? 600 years after Jesus?
I'm okay, actually. If he started off and was like, this is what determinism is, these are the data points that I'll be drawing from to explain why it's biblical. But instead, we start out with a philosophical syllogism. Then we go to the council. Was it Chalcedon? Which I'm okay with. I affirm Chalcedon.
Yeah, there's two of them.
But it's like, dude, the debate's biblical. We called this early on. We're like, this is going to be, is determinism a philosophically tenable possibility? Not is determinism biblical. I think that's where he's going here.
Okay.
Creature distinction, just to become a human must be substantially different as for what generates the will. So creation, and that means humans, are not the same substantially as the divine will. So I guess the experience of the human experience to represent the human experience in every way must be pretty much of a created nature, of a human nature. So Matthew 26:38, my soul is very sorrowful, even to death. Isaiah 53:2 grows up as in human development, talking about the future Messiah. So yeah, so growing up and in
how is he going to tie this into determinism? My soul is very sorrowful, even to death. It's like my first premise is Jesus has a soul.
So yeah, premise 2 and 3.
Therefore, determinism.
So that was premise 1. So now premise 2: Christ's human will fully represents the human experience in every way. This is literally the language of Hebrews 2:17.
Okay.
Yeah. So we have the Council of Nicaea, Constantinople, Ephesus, Chalcedon, all that affirm this premise. So if Drew just so happened to deny premise 1 or premise 2, he's going to be deemed a heretic. So he has to affirm this. And premise 3: if Christ has a human will that fully represents the human experience in every way, then his human will must operate as our human will in general does.
Welcome to Tim Barber.
The system of choice, like how humans show.
What's up, guys?
We're gonna mute or pause, and then we're gonna put them on a speed. Where did my speed settings go?
Playback speed is right in the middle.
Okay, there we go. We'll put it on.
Good to see you, man.
Good seeing you guys.
I haven't talked to you. I haven't talked to you since our James White debate review, brother. Like it's been forever.
It's like 6 months.
You get famous and then you blow off.
He's been too busy recording my book.
Oh, is that what it is?
Among other things. Yeah. Good to be here, guys. Good to see you. I just wanted to check in and see if everything's on fire yet.
Well, it is on fire. He gave us 7 premises that apparently will lead to determinism. And number one
lots
is
of scripture.
There's 2 wills, and then Christ's human will fully represents the human experience. And there's some verses, and there's a couple councils. I don't know. This is gonna be absolute calamity.
Chooses. So some key verses we already mentioned. Hebrews 2:17. He had to be made like his brothers in every way. Again, Hebrews 2:17 to make propitiation for the sins for the people.
18, I don't think he actually believes that.
He's able to help those.
He doesn't believe that at all.
4:15. For we do not have a high priest who is unable to empathize. So denying this, so premise that we do have one that can empathize with our weaknesses, but one who has been tempted in every way. Again, every way, just as we are, yet without sin.
So he believes that Jesus had original sin.
Yeah,
because he believes in
just corrupted the incarnation, ladies and gentlemen. There you go. He was like us every way. Yep.
I'm gonna skip this time. So premise 2 and how it refutes academic responses. So there's nowhere to hide in academia other than what you're seeing right here on the screen. That's all you're gonna find. Well, I guess Ryan knows, but Ryan was first what Andrew Locke says. But pretty much they're Neopollinarian in a sense with different nuances. But yeah, so I guess Neopollinarian accounts fail at creator-creature distinction, as the logos somehow modifies itself to function like a human soul. So Apollinarianism is pretty much a God with a bod, so a God that pretty much assumes a human body, and instead of having a soul, you have the creator, the logos. And in Neopollinarianism, it's pretty much that the creator kind of like modifies shapes. I guess
he doesn't even know the biblical data regarding what a soul is.
Sort of like human soul.
Yeah, it's interesting.
But yeah,
I made the right choice to drink some bourbon during this. That was a correct decision.
So they may try to solve Susan's worry, which is like, how do you have
to
upgrade my person? How is that not two persons? And this is a problem that is so utterly hard to solve.
I'm working a lot.
If anything, they're just onto heresy or mystery. So yeah, but yeah, Neopollinarianism accounts pretty much fall into determinism. They seem to fail Chalcedonic Christology as they mix wills to the point of making them indistinguishable and allowing them to operate non-coercively. But yeah, so even if it's successful on solving the two-source worry, it's not successful in that it entails determinism and also heresy.
You got Nick Quaint over in their comments saying, the guy without any serious theological training is telling us that everyone else but him is wrong, yet he does not theological training, this is what it leads to. This 7 premise thing to lead to determinism in the Bible. It's all nonsense.
Yeah, to quote the great Thomas Sowell, some ideas are so stupid you have to be taught into them.
Yep, so, with numerous slideshows and 27 premises.
God bless him.
I'm not going to go over Team Paul's because of lack of time. So, okay, but the point is that there's nowhere to run or hide in academia as of the True Sons worry. So I guess Drew has to solve the True Sons worry in this debate, but yeah, he doesn't have anything in academia in order to solve it. Premise 4, Christ's human will, it was necessarily aligned with the divine will. This may be controversial, but
Drew, how do you respond to that, Drew?
Accept premise 4. So some of the reasons, doctrine of impeccability, I wouldn't be surprised if an open theist or someone like a provision has denied the doctrine of impeccability, but I guess the rest of Christendom ever usually affirms the doctrine of impeccability. I guess he'll answer that in the Q&A.
This is why he wanted
so also Constantinople, it calls it as an impious heretics have said.
Also the doctrine of you deny
that I guess everything of including the wills of each of the persons are in each of the other persons. So I guess the Father's will, it's in the Logos will. So yeah, if you only have one will and it's the will of Logos, I guess you would have to argue from necessity that from ontological necessity that is where you're coming from the choices and God can.
Yeah, remember when the experts for the last 4 years was telling us all this increased government spending and handouts would not lead to massive inflation, and then it absolutely did. Like anyone with Econ 101 could have told you, these experts, they're always wrong. That you have to be trained to deny basic facts of reality. And so it's what appears to be going on here. These people, they get a little bit of training and then they think their training means anything, and just not all nonsense.
It's just also a useless point because it's really easy to refute. If there's nowhere to run in academia, does he mean that like there aren't any people who are also in academia who disagree with what he just said? Because academics fight about everything.
Yeah, Richard Swinburne is a famous open theist and very well respected metaphysician.
Cannot sin. The Logos cannot possibly sin. So his system of choice is sort of bound to his ontological goodness. Also, a principle of sufficient reason, which they have to deny, or they have to make an exception here, as choices have reasons. We're going to go over later on. But Christ's human will lacking human personhood, as all other human persons. So yeah, so that would deny premise 2. Like he has to have a personhood in every way as every other person. Yeah, I guess we'll
again. He keeps emphasizing that like he believes.
So yeah, defending premise 4. We'll go over some key verses. So John 5:19, the Son can do nothing. So talking about ability. It says that the Son cannot do nothing, can't do nothing by himself, but can only do what he sees his Father doing.
Yeah, so that's always a premise, like a smuggled assumption that the Calvinists bring into words. So they'll say, "Oh, this verse says God made someone do that," but then there's language in the Bible like the kings of Israel made Israel sin. It's not like a metaphysical forcing. It's just like a leading to, and it doesn't mean that there's no other possibility. They're assuming that into the word that's being used when in normal language, those assumptions are not just imported into the usages of those words. And so if a Calvinist is claiming a specific word means a specific thing, just look up that word and look at the use throughout the Bible and see if there's counterexamples of it being used in different ways that are not conducive to the Calvinist's argument. And you'll find that there's always plenty of examples. They are begging the question, importing assumptions.
Skip to what I think is other strong verse, John 14:10. Do you not believe that I am in the Father and the Father is in me? The words I say to you, I do not speak of my own authority. Rather, it is the Father living in me. Again, perichoresis, so a combination of each person of the Trinity living in each other, and the choices coming from the ontological substance of the divine will, who is doing His work. So it's coming from the Father. Again, perichoresis. 2 Corinthians 5:21. God made Him who had no sin to be sin for us. So made Him. So again, it's taking credit. So taking credit constantly, but okay, well, we're gonna skip in order to get more time. So this is gonna be the heart of the argument, I guess. What is gonna get attacked more often online and also by my opponent, premise 5. So premise 5 is if Christ's human will was necessarily aligned with the divine will, then Christ's human will was not free in the libertarian sense.
Okay, so Drew has the answer to this. I already told him the answer that Jesus prays, "Not my will, but yours be done," because doing Jesus's will would preclude God's will being done in Jesus's mind, potentially. And so they have different wills and they're not aligned. And Jesus has to forego his will to follow God's will. And what is this will that they're talking about? They're like, oh, there's there's two wills and Jesus had two. People have just like one will, but they have competing priorities, and there's trade-offs that we engage in our lives. It's not like we have conflicting wills or something like that. We have trade-offs. Everyone experiences trade-offs. And so I don't
a whole bunch of what he just said was condemned as Christological heresy in the first couple of centuries.
Well, like everything is. So if you talk about the Trinity, you're going to be a heretic by some council. Yeah. And so those are the rules. I don't make the rules. Those are just the rules.
So we're going to go over some points like causal influences, reasons, basically because there's some models of free will in academia that do have reasons responsiveness or reason explanations or deliberative theories like Christopher Franklin and Robert Kane. But yeah, even they have the reasons not functioning at some key moments. Like you sometimes do it because of a reason. So I mean, that's our arguments are still kind of work. That's why we're bringing this up, and we're using the idea of Robert Kane.
I think what Izzy was wanting to do here was to create such a long complicated syllogism that he's going to say, well, the only way that Drew could refute me is to come in and demonstrate that one of my, like, premise 19, subset 3, paragraph A isn't tenable. Therefore, and he's wanting this really, all Drew has to say is,
with those two models,
look at this one example. No, you're all of this rambling, this vain philosophy that you've concocted is it's worthless. It's not biblical. Like, look, here you go. Like, that's it. But Izzy's got this beautiful little idol that he constructed out of 27 slides and 19 premises, and it's just
and it doesn't seem like it's in some sort of format in which the premises lead to the conclusion. So like usually if you have like a logical case, it's like if X then Y, if Y then Z, therefore if X then Z, or something like that. And it seems like he just lists a bunch of premises and then he just has this conclusion.
Yeah.
And it's like, well,
it doesn't follow, it doesn't flow.
Yeah. And so Drew came on with the questions for Calvinists to try to figure out what Israel would argue in this debate. And so when we got to the section of the Calvinists answer questions, and he's going off on his 50 different premises, and we're all confused. It's like,
okay, so the first argument for
that's exactly what the debate was going to be. And so Drew got his sampling of how Israel's going to argue. It was hard for me. It's hard for me still to believe that this is happening right now. What is this?
The first point to score on is explanatory power.
Dude, it's a train wreck. Like, look. I can't say I'm the greatest debater that's ever lived, right? None of us are like super amazing. Well, Tim's pretty good, but none of us are like super amazing. But at the same time, it's like, are you sure you want to go through basically the debate equivalent of a root canal with this guy? Like, this is, this is almost up there with like rogue Calvinists. Like, it's that bad. It's like, what are you doing to yourself, man? Like, you must love the audience, so much that you're going to put through this, like, in a selfless display of love.
Not sure if the green screen is going to mess up my picture, but it's given me the conspiracy guy from the memes. That's the vibes I'm getting right now.
So the general rule of thumb for theology is if you have to get to your conclusion, your theological doctrine, from linking this text, if this text says this thing, and then this text says this thing, then this text, by that third jump, you're just probably making it up. That's the general rule, is like, if it has to be forced in that sense, it's probably not taught in the Bible.
So I think we have so this point, ad hocness. So Kane's model makes it arbitrary and unfalsifiable when only when referring to the key moments of libertarian free will. And still in every indeterminist model, we don't have an explanation of how a libertarian free will choice goes from non-existence to existence. It's usually what I've seen Leighton Flowers and others says that, we have it because God has it, or he's omnipotent, so he can make free creatures. So sorry, guys, that is ad hoc. So you guys are being ad hoc. So also you guys losing this point.
His argument literally cites because reasons.
Of the hypothesis is simpler. Over here,
That's like really important furniture for what makes it work. People do things because reasons.
Okay, so when I teach people to present PowerPoint slides, I say put important bullets up there, and then you can't read the slides. You have to just put little bullets up there. You can have some detailed information, but bold the important stuff, and don't teach everything that's on your slide. You can't read slides, and it has to be fluid. He's doing the exact opposite. He's speaking very, very fast and reading his entire slides, and it's dense, complicated stuff. No one's following.
Why?
I don't think anyone's following
John
this.
8:29, the one who sent me is with me, has not left me alone, for I always do what pleases him. So Jesus always does X. Why? Because it pleases God. So give us a reason, and the reason is why he did, why the action came into being. Hebrews 10:7. Then it said, "Here I am. It is written about me in the scroll. I have come to do your will, my God." So Jesus does X because it's God's will. Other biblical characters, Abraham said, "I did it because I thought there is no fear of God in all of this place. They will kill me because of my wife." So Abraham does X because he thought Y. And also Abraham thinks they, like the other people, will do X because of Y, in this case, his wife. So not just about himself, but also about the other. So it seems that our model corresponds better. So we also have some more examples, but I'll just go because of time. So my second argument for premise 5, just for premise 5. So it's an inductive defense, an inductive argument. It's about probability. So the premise 1, humans make millions of choices in their lifetime, an estimated of 421 million for Jesus. We multiply the per day, then per week, month, then 33 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's approximate, and yeah, there's some debate on how.
So yeah, this reminds me of economics. You'll have all these Keynesian economists running around with their very complicated models, trying to argue why prices are not going to rise if you print more money, and they'll be very convinced of it, and they'll have all these little proofs all together, but it's all just nonsense. It's all just fluff. If you're smart enough, there's a bell curve. If you're part of the more intelligent part of the bell curve, you're going to come up with complicated reasons why very basic truths aren't true. But remember, there's two ends of the bell curve, and there's that meme where the smart person and the dumb person are agreed with each other. And where did I just see this? Oh, the latest place I saw this was people are trying to dismiss Elon Musk's his uncovering of Social Security payments going to all sorts of people aged over 150 years old. And they're claiming it was a COBOL programming error, which it absolutely wasn't, because if you look at the data that was pushed, it's not stopping at 150. It's not clustering at 150. It's not the COBOL error, but they're coming up with this ridiculous reason. And someone also tried to call him out on saying that Social Security numbers are in SQL databases, and he mocked them. He's like, imagine thinking that the government's using these SQL databases. It's not. These people are just making up reasons why their fantasy picture of the world is accurate. And like, the smart people understand that it's all fraud in our government, and it's all these complicated formulas are all nonsense. And the really dumb people, it's just the people in the middle who have to come up with these complicated excuses why reality isn't the way reality is. So that's what it reminds me of.
My favorite usage of that meme format is the dumb guy with like the caved in head, and then like the Jedi on the other side of the bell curves. And both of them are saying, like, the dumb guy with the caved in head says, Jesus is enough. And then in the middle, there's the like crying Wojak face of like absolutely, apoplectic. And it's every doctrine you could ever imagine any Christian ever arguing about. And then the Jedi at the other end of the bell curve is saying Jesus is enough. So it's the same. Yeah. They end up in the same place.
Do we know if Drew is actually allowed to have a rebuttal?
No. Well, we'll see what he does with his time. And so,
I mean, this is the dumbest approach I can think of. Like,
right.
I'm going to stack the deck. I want 20-minute openings where I'm going to information overload you. You're not allowed to rebut me. And if you don't meet my standard for refuting me, then I'm automatically the winner. And it's just like, Izzy is so insecure. And I think this shows just how insecure he is in his own position, that it can't withstand scrutiny. But again, all Drew has to do is say, oh, what a beautiful house of cards you've constructed here. It would be terrible if somebody just came along with one counterexample to your absolute position and it all fall apart. I don't need to refute all 27 premises and their subsections. Like,
okay, and I specifically told Drew, just bring up that Jesus's will is different than God's in the garden.
Yep.
And so if Drew just leads with that one thing, like this whole thing falls apart. And so someone's pointing out that Calvinism is the theology of midwits. Yeah, like open theism, I think it resonates against low IQ people because what does the low IQ person do? They read the text and they just say, oh, the text says here, God repents. And then the really smart people, they're like, okay, what's the ancient Near Eastern take on this text? So it resonates against the different ends of the spectrum. And then it takes complicated narrative.
Did you just say open theists are on the spectrum?
Yeah, we're all on the spectrum.
We're all on the spectrum.
For us to be live streaming right now to an audience with people watching, we have to be on the spectrum.
We are. Yeah. Okay.
I'm gonna hit this live button, so we're gonna.
Let's skip ahead because Drew's about to start.
When you're ready, and I will begin your time. Go ahead.
All right, I'm ready. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for allowing me to be here. I appreciate everyone that helped me to prepare for this debate and everyone that prayed. And thanks to Israel for being here as well. Now, Israel is making an absolute claim tonight that determinism is biblical. That's what this debate is about. But before we proceed, it's crucial that we define our terms. So Guillaume Bignon, a leading proponent of theological determinism, writes in his book, Excusing Sinners and Blaming God,
Drew sounds like a normal person. He sounds like this. The debate optics are really bad for Israel.
Yeah. Where's your slides, Drew?
Where's your slides?
Behind determinism is that everything that comes to pass is determined or necessitated by prior conditions, natural or supernatural. So Israel and I have agreed that this boils down to, quote, God has predestined everything, end quote. Every thought, every action, every sin, every moment in history, yes, even that one. If my opponent is going to sustain his position, he must demonstrate from Scripture that determinism is explicitly taught. Not just that God has predestined some things, but that God has unilaterally predestined everything that ever happens. Additionally, this debate is not about specific metaphysical and philosophical presuppositions that my opponent will inevitably bring to the table, but about what is biblical. He needs to prove these things from the Bible. Now, let me be clear. I do not bear the burden of proving an alternative. Israel must demonstrate determinism from Scripture. My task is much easier. I only need to show that determinism is implausible and improbable in light of the biblical data. A Calvinist, Greg Kokel, in his quintessential evangelistic book, Tactics, defines a claim as plausible if it has a reasonable chance of being true, and two, probable if it is more likely true than false. That means that if I can provide just one plausible and probable,
he's speaking clear, he's speaking intelligibly. The optics are terrible for Israel.
Then
I expect damage control mode after this debate
is determined fails. So
I guess things
start by giving a clear definition of what
how he determined. You know,
incredible. Simply
Israel is on Facebook complaining that Drew was already claiming victory. He's saying, "Oh, I thought things couldn't be predestined," and you think you're going to win this debate? He's all complaining on Facebook.
Our choices are not made.
I think Drew called it
by prior conditions. An example of that would be an otherwise choice, or at least a decision that was sourced in the agent rather than prior causes. Now that we've defined determinism as the belief that God has predestined everything, and for clarity's sake, this has also been referred to exhaustive divine determination by Tim Stratton, the next logical question is, what should we expect to find in Scripture if this view were truly biblical? If determinism is the clear teaching of the Bible, we should see unmistakable evidence supporting it. After all, it is not an uncontroversial claim. So, if it's the truly biblical position, there are about 4 key elements we would expect to see. 1, universal language. If God has predetermined everything, we should see clear, unambiguous statements that all things are predestined. The Bible should say something like, God has determined all things that come to pass. Number 2, deterministic terminology, words like decree.
Oh, okay. I actually hit mute, but I didn't mean. I meant to hit pause. Isn't it funny that Israel used his entire opening on this very weird, complicated premise thing, And Drew is actually spreading out his ammunition or his targeting fire, and he's hitting various points that are all not interdependent. All of Israel's stuff was interdependent. So if like one premise falls, the whole thing falls. And he spent his whole time explaining this complicated thing that nobody understood. And so that's a really bad debate strategy, is to put all your eggs.
Not only that, Chris, but Izzy insisted he doesn't even have an opportunity to rebut the very simple claims and meager claims that Drew is putting forward. So here, even if he had some sort of defense, which I don't think he does, in order to like head off Drew at the pass, he couldn't even respond to Drew's opening statement. So here, Drew's going to come in and be like, hey, he's making an absolute claim. All I need is a simple example. Here you go. His whole house of cards is done. And Izzy ensured he couldn't even address that if there was a response, which is the height of irony. He was so paranoid he was going to lose, he almost ensured it.
This is really funny.
Or determine should be found frequently and explicitly in reference to all events. And the third and fourth one can be rolled into one, essentially past tense verbs or pre-creation language or pre-creation language. Instead of God predestines, we should see statements like God predestined, indicating that the decree or the predestination, the determination was already settled before any human action. Ephesians 1:11, for example, is often cited in these discussions, but it actually describes God's ongoing work, not a past all-encompassing determination. Pre-creation language. If all things are determined, we should find clear biblical teaching that before creation, God unilaterally predestined every event, including every sin and evil act that would ever occur. So these are the 4 markers I want you to look for throughout the cross-examination, conclusions, and if Israel has attempted to give such evidence in his opening. If Israel's position is correct, these elements should be obvious and consistent in Scripture. Now, some might object, saying, well, the Bible doesn't explicitly state the doctrine of the Trinity either, and yet we believe it. But this objection misses the point. While the term Trinity isn't in the Scripture, the core elements of the doctrine, the Father is God, the Son is God, Holy Spirit is God, there is one God, are all clearly and repeatedly taught. The doctrine emerges naturally from Scripture because the pieces fit together seamlessly. If determinism were biblical, we would expect something similar, clear and consistent statements that God has predetermined all things. But what we find instead are scattered proof texts, ambiguous terms, and numerous passages that suggest that we have otherwise choice and that not everything is predestined or determined.
Yeah.
Unlike the Trinity, determinism does not emerge from the text.
This is the key.
Imported into it. And this brings us to the real test. Does Scripture actually support determinism, or
Christ in Life says, so is Drew an open theist? Yes, he is.
does it point to something else entirely? Let's examine a few key passages.
He's a dynamic guy. He would be more in line with
Remember, only one counterexample needs to stand for determinism to be proved false. So here are 2. Number 1, 1 Corinthians 10:13. Paul writes, no temptation has come upon you.
I'm still probably a halfway point between the two of you other guys on the call with me right now.
But God is faithful.
So how it works is
I'm the only one claiming you, though. That's
the more hair you have, the more you are a dynamic omniscience. And so like it scales down until you get some sort of thinning thing.
He will not allow you to be tempted beyond what you are able, but with the temptation, he will also provide the way out so that you may be able to bear it. Paul,
while we're on the subject, Drew's cut is looking pretty fresh right now.
1 Corinthians 10:13 is taken at face value, then every believer has the power of contrary choice when facing temptation.
He looks really good. I like it. It's nice. I'm jealous.
Genuine ability to take the way out that God provides. If determinism is true, then this verse is misleading, as the way out would never be available for those predetermined to sin. End quote. This is key. If determinism is true, then Paul's words are at worst false and at best misleading. A way out that was not available given the circumstances is no way out at all. But if libertarian free will is true, then this passage makes perfect sense. God faithfully provides a real, available path to resist temptation. If every action is determined, then the way out that God provided never truly existed in that particular moment for those who failed. If someone succumbs to temptation, they could not have taken the way out that God effectively dangled just out of their reach. That means God never actually provided a way out, and Paul's statement is misleading and becomes unreliable instead of faithful. Because remember, the text says God is faithful. Why? He will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. He will provide a way out so that you can endure it. On determinism, if then statements become mere FYIs for your information, if you take the way out, you'll endure really means if you're determined to take it, you will. This guts Scripture's invitations, turning them from real choices into empty announcements of what's already determined. Is it reasonable to conclude a libertarian anti-determinist reading here? Then it's plausible. Is it more likely to be true than false that any given Christian, given his or her current situation, can say no to temptation because God has been faithful to provide a way out? Then it's probable. And thus, determinism would be false with this one counterexample. Number 2.
Yeah, I don't think people come to determinism naturally just through reading the Bible. I think they have to be like trained since birth to kind of read it in that sense into the Bible. I don't think it's a natural outcome.
Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 19. Moses says this to Israel: I have set before you life and death, blessings and curses. Now choose life so that you and your children may live. If determinism is true, this is a charade. Why would Moses tell the people to choose life if in their current circumstances and given their past, we're already predetermined to choose death? Was Moses aware of determinism? Would it be plausible that it's reasonable to look at this text and conclude determinism? Is determinism more likely to be true than false? On the other hand, it is perfectly plausible and reasonable to conclude that the people had at least two other wise choices in front of them here, and it is more likely, given the immediate context, to be true than false, i.e. probable. Now, I'm tempted to go into a huge list with passages like Romans 7:15, Romans 10, Acts 7:51, Isaiah 5:4, but I will.
You see what he's doing? He's dropping evidence and proof texts without actually having to do it. He's just saying, I do have other stuff, and he's priming the audience to understand that this is not an isolated. This is a great strategy.
I like it.
Good debate strategy.
Refrain for obvious sake of time, and Israel can ask me about them in cross-examination if he so wishes. And remember, if only one of these passages stand as plausible and probable for libertarian freedom, then that's all I need to refute exhaustive determinism. In sum, why determinism fails. Number one, it's not explicitly taught in Scripture. The burden is on my opponent to prove that everything is predestined. Number two, I only need one plausible and probable counterexample. I've provided two here. There are more. Number three, determinism entails major problems. God is unreliable to provide Christians with a way of escape. Moses presents only one accessible choice and speaks as though there are two. If determinism is true, God's offers of salvation and appeals to choice would be false, raising the question of why we should trust any of his words and scriptures or doubt some kind of secret hidden agenda. Ultimately, why should we accept determinism at all? Why implicate God in every evil act if we don't have to, especially if the scriptural data doesn't require it? Even the Westminster Confession implicitly acknowledges the problem. It claims God has ordained everything, yet denies that God is the author of sin without explaining how. Even Reformed theologians struggle to reconcile this contradiction, why should we just accept it? The real issue here is God's holiness. We all want a God who is truly separate from evil, not one who thought up and predestined it all before creation. And ultimately, this is why the stakes are so high. This isn't just a philosophical discussion about abstract ideas. This is about how we understand God's character in relationship to evil. If determinism is true, then God predestined every evil action, every evil desire, and even every evil thought. Yes, even that one in human history. That is a serious theological claim. It's an absolute
And they all
one,
originated with him.
and one that must be explicitly proven from Scripture, not just assumed or argued for from specious metaphysical claims. And libertarian freedom is the most consistent, biblical, and reasonable way to affirm God's holiness and man's sinfulness because, number one, when he's faced with temptation, the Christian can give in or not give in, and he must bear the weight of this decision that could have been different given his past circumstances. Number two, when sinful desires arise, Number two, each person has death or life in front of them and are able to choose life. So I leave you with this challenge. Will you simply accept determinism because it's been asserted or derived speciously from a particular idiosyncratic metaphysical view that only some hold to? Or will you follow the example of the Bereans who searched the scriptures daily to see if these things are so? When we stop forcing determinism into the text and take the Bible at face value, the conclusion is clear: determinism is not biblical.
Okay. I thought that was pretty clear and concise. I think he did a great job. And I think normal people watching, just based on tone and body language alone, they're going to just side with him because Israel's was just like a whole bunch of walls of text. No one's reading that. No one's reading that. Warren, your thoughts?
I've been over here just talking smack and trolling. I'm sorry. I've been having a little bit of fun.
Yeah, that one with the Disney Plus terms of service is a pretty good little comment there.
Yeah, it was divinely inspired in eternity past.
That was God's idea before it was yours, Warren. You can't really take credit.
I can't take credit for it. Who am I? Oh man, I'm but a worm. But that was a good line that he gave me.
Worm McGrew. Yeah,
he had some ups and downs.
Worm McGrew
evidence. He pulled on our heartstrings a little bit. Israel's just like all these premises. This plus this, and then this and this. You can't do that, Israel.
You'll notice that Drew did not address any of my 39 premises and subsections. So therefore, I automatically win according to the terms that I set forth about this, and he can't rebut me.
Warren, I navigated away from the tab and then came back literally thinking that was audio coming through. I did not know.
If you go look at the terms of the debate, in paragraph 5, subsection 3C, obviously I have won. I won the debate. Just go read the terms.
No. I'm a little embarrassed.
This seems to be a premise
awesome.
without
I legit thought he was saying that.
Okay,
so
that's actually what I did in the presentation. I did bring a lot of biblical support, but yeah. So as of one person, so I brought John 3:13. No other person. So just one person. So it says except he who descended from heaven. So only one person descended from heaven. Only one person. That's just one person right there. All right, and then I brought some other verses for two wills. Father, if you're willing, remove this cup from me. Nevertheless, not my will, but yours be done. So there's a bunch of counsels.
We'll just go back to your question. Do you want me to just answer your question?
Yeah. So is there one person with two wills?
Sure.
Okay. Alrighty. Let's move on.
Don't give it to that. Don't do that, Drew. Don't do it.
Let's go with premise 23. So
talk.
Premise 2: Christ's human will fully represents the human experience in every way. Is this premise true?
Well, I don't think Jesus had spicy Dorito Taco Bell tacos. That's part of the human experience. So maybe generally speaking.
This seems a bit vague to me. When I think of a passage like in Hebrews where it says that Christ was tempted in every way but without sin, and then we talk about adding impeccability into that. We're not talking about the what comes out as the choices. I mean, we make different choices throughout life, but I guess the system of how we choose, at least that of having a soul, because Christ has a soul, right? Do you believe Christ has a soul?
He doesn't even know what that word means.
Okay, so so I guess if he has a soul,
he can't tell me what even like the difference is between pneuma and psyche in the Greek. He doesn't have any concept of those things. He's reading anachronistic, Platonized, Hellenized church fathers hundreds of years after the New Testament was written, anachronistically reading that back into the scriptures and just completely bungling it because he doesn't have any idea what the original concepts were.
Yeah, modern definitions of what a soul is.
Yeah. The first time the word soul is used, it's describing fish.
Pretty much, he's
in Genesis 1. The first time the word for soul is used in the Bible, it's in Genesis 1, and it's not used to describe people at all. It's used to describe fish. It's not like the disembodied, like eternal part of a person that lives on, an immaterial part of a person that lives on after they die. It is the physically embodied, spirit-empowered life of a fish. Swimming around in the waters.
It seems to be very closely associated with our blood life force within the Bible.
Yes.
Like the blood and soul are intricately linked.
Yeah. He's got a human soul like any other human soul. Like the same way you have liberty and free will, the same way Donnie has liberty and free will, also Jesus must have liberty and free will, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I could concede that Jesus' will is determined without having to concede that the Bible teaches that God has predestined everything.
Wait. So you said that Christ's will was determined?
Wait. You're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to grant me my premises. That I wasn't prepared for that.
It's like I could grant you all your premises and all my points still stand. Determinism's not true. And okay. I'm gonna hit play.
Concede it for sake of argument.
That was not my question. Whether you consider for the sake of argument, can you concede premise 2? Is premise 2 true?
You mean Christ's human will fully represents?
Yeah, was he fully human? Do you affirm all of these councils? Nicaea, Constantinople, Ephesus, Chalcedon. Do you affirm all of those? Were they wrong?
Are you going to be a heretic? Do you affirm? We were here to talk about the Bible, but yes.
Yeah, and it's a biblical argument. That's why in the setup we did not agree to the Bible teaches, but is determinism biblical? And that means also implicitly you agree with it. So it's really weird.
Unfortunately, I've got a phone call, guys. So I'm going to have to dip.
Is premise 2 true?
I just wanted to see if we were on fire, and
it's true.
All right.
Pretty much what I expect.
Premise 3.
So,
okay, we'll catch you later, Tim.
Good seeing you, Tim.
Yep. Good seeing you guys too. Cheers.
Christ has a human will that fully represents the human experience in every way. Then his human will most operate as our human will, as our human will in general does. Is that premise true? So he's got a soul, and the way he chooses, he's got liberty and free will as every other human. So I guess the way his soul works must be the same way as how every other human works, because he's got a soul, right? Is this premise true?
Sure.
Okay, so premise 3 is true, right? All right.
Yes.
So you have from already the major premises. All right. So let's just move on. Premise 4. Christ's human will was necessarily aligned with the divine will. You said you don't mind affirming it for the sake of argument that he was determined for choosing X, Y, and Z, right? So do you do it for the sake of argument, or do you actually believe that it was necessarily aligned? Do you deny impeccability?
He's smuggling concepts, and so my will can be aligned with my kid's will. My kid wants to have fun and have a great day. My will could be aligned with that. That doesn't mean determinism is true. It just means that we're syncing up, and so maybe my kid will say, "Hey, Dad, let's go have ice cream," and like. I never planned on having ice cream in the day, but I could just be like, yeah, okay, let's do that. And I could adopt his suggestions. It doesn't mean determinism is true to have aligned wills. It seems to be a smuggled assumption.
Yeah.
Well, so when you say aligned here, it seems to me that, for instance, if Christ is in front of two people desiring a miracle, that he has the freedom to heal one and not the other, both of which could be aligned necessarily with God's will without his choice being determined. And that also doesn't follow that God has predestined everything just because Christ's choice is determined.
Okay, choosing from a bundle of beliefs. So pretty much you're saying that if humans can only choose from a bad bundle of beliefs, only choose bad choices, like either stab a grandma or kick a baby on the face, whatever, those are the only choices. Only bad choices can be chosen. You will be morally responsible and be morally evil.
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking about libertarianism and not whether or not the Bible teaches determinism, and my beliefs, I would say that for any given presented choices, if a person has more than one choice, then they have libertarian freedom.
That's not my question. So again, answer the question. So if a person only has bad choices, like it's only possible that you can only do bad stuff. You cannot never do good stuff. Are you morally responsible? Yes or no? Quick, don't waste my time.
Yes, because if you have two bad choices in front of you, you said choice says.
Okay, all right, I'll move on.
What is this? Quick, don't waste my time.
What a tool, dude. I'm sorry.
He has to think about your question. You're asking complicated things.
So are you asking? Quick, don't waste my time.
Like what is happening here?
Come on, man.
He has to process your question and then digest it and bump it up against his own theology. These are not like just simple questions. Did you have dinner yesterday? That's a simple question. Yes or no. Does my complex theological metaphysics that I'm putting in my premise align to what you think is reality? Like, okay, let me think about that.
I'll move on. Okay, that's fine. Do you affirm the doctrine of impeccability?
I believe that Christ was tempted in every way as we are. I don't know that the Bible really speaks to.
So you don't know if it's true or not. You don't know if it's true or not.
Yeah, I mean, I think that.
All right, that's in. That's fine.
Okay, so impeccability is the doctrine that not only does Jesus not sin, Jesus doesn't sin, but Jesus can't sin.
Yeah,
it's like Jesus can't sin.
Wait,
then
so
how?
You're not affirming this thing that we're not debating.
It's like, well, I thought Jesus was like man in every way, so I think he could do. I think at least the Satan in the desert thought Jesus could sin. He didn't affirm impeccability. That impeccability is a term that's post-biblical, that's been gerrymandered onto the text of the Bible to try to force certain conclusions for certain philosophical reasons. It's not a biblical teaching, and so Jesus didn't sin, but it doesn't follow that Jesus could not sin, which undermines a lot of what's happening in the Bible. If Jesus doesn't have free will, and he's like, then what's the point of his human experience?
Like, can God sin? Can God just go and rape a grandma? So he's incapable. So I guess all right. So can the Christ human nature, his human will, can he sin?
Israel thinks that every rape ever committed is God.
Yeah. Like, what's the deal, dude?
This is
it's not consistent at all.
Can he rape a grandma?
Let's say that God. No, he can't.
He can't. How is I'm the one asking questions. How is it that he can't? You mean from his nature? So the doctrine of perichoresis goes from ontological nature. So all the persons are in each other. Which person is in the Son? It's the Logos, right? So he cannot do it because of ontological reasons. Is that correct?
He cannot do it because of ontological reasons.
Yeah, because he's ontologically good. Is that correct? He cannot rape a grandma because he's ontologically good. Is that correct?
Yes.
Comes from his ontology. Okay. So again, is Christ's human will necessarily aligned with the divine will?
Yeah,
I don't know if Drew knows what he's affirming here. It's like I just say, maybe.
Is that what we're debating? Can you explain to me how we're debating that? Like,
yeah,
okay, all
conceded
right.
That so far as
all right, you conceded it. That's good enough for me. You conceded it. All right, so you have conceded premise 1 through 4. Okay, now premise 5. If Christ's human will was necessarily aligned with the divine will, then Christ's human will was not free and deliberate to instance. So I gave 5 arguments, 3 arguments. We'll start with the abductive case. Can you show how you have more explanatory power given free will for reasons being causal or influences being causal?
Well, again, I would remind the audience that the topic is determinism biblical? But I will answer your question, even though I don't think this is a question of biblical nature.
Yeah, so, just answer it. Just answer it.
Yeah,
we're actually talking about biblical data, because I mentioned biblical cases of causal reasons, and I had a plethora in my screen. I don't know if you saw it, but there's a lot of verses. It's full of those verses. So again, if the Bible claims to do X because of
yeah, he put a lot of verses, but his verses didn't say the things. Jesus had 2 wills. There's not a verse that says Jesus had 2 wills.
No, this is painful, man. This is painful. This is like that divine enlightenment. He's smarter than the prophets and apostles here, because he's got his metaphysics, and he's going to ensure that they're crammed into the text.
Okay, so Nick Quaint in the comments says, Drew, just say I don't understand your highly technical and seemingly misleading questions that appear unrelated to the debate topic. Nick, that's correct. That is correct, Nick. That's the correct response. Drew, read the comments.
Because of why reasons. I mean, can you explain that? So, for example, do you eat cake because you like cake, or could you always do otherwise? Like, whatever reasons you have, can you always do otherwise?
Yeah, I don't think that you necessarily have to always be able to do otherwise for libertarianism.
It's not about always. So let's say in one instance.
You just said always, so I'm just answering the questions that you're asking. So in one particular instance, it's possible that you don't have the option to.
Okay. So right now you have reasons. Is it possible to do otherwise than any of the reasons that you currently have for doing it?
Yeah. So regarding that, inspiring philosophy is that if.
Wait.
I'm trying to answer the question.
All right. So if you already said that you cannot answer, I'm sorry, that you could have always done otherwise. Well, the Bible seems to have a case for saying that it is because of the reason that H is X does Y. So yeah, you don't have explanatory power. That was my point. All right, explanatory scope.
Do you have a question? I'm trying to answer your question. You asked me a question about reasons and stuff, and I'm trying to answer it.
All right,
we got time for one more question. So if you could do this, Israel, ask a final question or reiterate.
This is so funny. He ran out of time asking about all his crazy premises. Oh man!
All Drew has to say is premises 6 through 93 failed, and he couldn't demonstrate them in this debate. Therefore, I win.
Oh no! This is so funny.
Time as he needs to respond, and then we'll transition into round 2. Go ahead.
All right. So there's a plethora of verses that say that agents do X because of Y. That attributes it to a reason. So if my model says that reasons are causal, and yours, as you already admitted, because of the principle of alternative possibilities, doesn't allow it, would you have a bigger explanatory scope?
My kids clean the kitchen when I tell them, because if they don't, I'll give them spankings. Yeah, they do things for a reason. That doesn't mean that it's deterministic. They can and have in the past rebelled, but they do things for reasons. That like it's not a good argument.
Well, firstly, I would say that I didn't admit anything. I said that you don't necessarily always have to have the choice to do otherwise. My phone, if sorry.
Was that one of your timers?
Warren's sending him messages. He's texting Drew, and Drew's phone's going off. Like, say, just read the Nick Quaint thing.
I'm assuming for the 10 minutes.
Sorry.
Oh no, I wasn't.
Okay, gentlemen, that is round 1 of our cross exam. Before I reset it,
I was making it up. I was fabricating it.
Yeah,
you got to go long.
Sorry about that, man. I didn't want anybody saying Drew didn't win this on his own. He had to have help.
Warren was feeding you your lines. That's the only reason you won, Drew.
The only way you could beat me.
Debates are about
Israel Trujillo. Is if Warren did it.
It's one person versus one person, and if you get help, it's unfair, and then the debate's invalid if you get help from outside yourself, because it's supposed to be mano a mano to see who the better man is, rather than a conflict of ideas, right?
Oh yeah, you know it. Tom got it right there, and he's gonna go full Wimplo.
Oh man, no, I don't know.
If ever there was an analogy that was appropriate, Tom, like you nailed that one. Nobody makes me bleed my own blood.
I think he's going to go into damage control mode. So that's what you're going to see.
that I am all caught up on your questions. I appreciate
because Calvinists have a victory mode and then they got a damage control mode. Like James White goes into a damage control mode with the Tim Barber debate, and that's damage control mode.
Oh, you're about to see Izzy on the defense, man. Drew's already started asking questions, and so I see a lot of hand movements, and I see a lot of people saying he's flailing. It's going to be interesting.
All right, we'll spin back up.
The interaction and the discussion in our live chat again. If you have
yes.
Did God determine before creation that this person would sin in this moment if they failed?
That's what determinism implies. Yes.
So if God determined their sin and they were able, sorry, let me rephrase. If God predetermined their sin, were they able, given their circumstances and past history, for them to take the way out and bear this temptation?
Was that a question?
Again?
Yeah.
What?
If God predetermined their sin, were they able, given their circumstances and past history, were they able to take the way out and bear the temptation?
Yeah, because we choose based on reason. So I would just say that we do have a system of determinism where, based on our beliefs, our proposition, whatever, our belief system, we can choose stuff based on that. So it is possible conditionally.
That you're saying it's possible. So you said conditional ability, but listen to my question again. If God predetermined their sin, were they able, given their circumstances and past history in that moment, to take a way out and bear this temptation?
Oh, yeah. So based on past reasons and past experiences, right? Yeah. No. So because we choose because of our reasons, because
my next question is, if they could never take the way out, how is God faithful for providing it?
Because it doesn't say that we must take it, that we are.
Ding, ding. Drew got him right out the gate.
How is God? Oh, that was worded better than I would have worded it.
It is.
Great
Drew,
job.
bravo with that question, bro. Thank you for the precision there. That was a kill shot with the first question.
How is God faithful for providing it if they can't take it?
That we are going to take the way out. It only says that there is a way out.
I'm saying if they were not able to take it, given their circumstances and past history, how is God faithful for providing that way out?
How is he faithful for providing a way out?
Yeah, because that's what the passage says. It says he is faithful. Let me read it again.
Oh, faithful, I guess.
No temptation has come upon you except what is common to humanity, but God is faithful. He will not allow you to be tempted beyond what you're able, but with the temptation, he will also provide the way out so that you may be able to bear it.
To be faithful implies someone having faith on. So if that implies intentionality, what intentionality we're talking? Someone that
boom
wants to get out. So someone that wants to get out.
No, it's talking about
the right
God.
circumstances.
God
will get out. So we'll have that experience. So
because
you're bringing the question
on. You're not answering the question.
Yes, I'm answering.
So, but you're talking about people being faithful. I'm not asking about people being faithful. I'm asking about how is God faithful to provide a way out if they were not able to take the way out given their past circumstances.
Yeah, I did answer that. So he's faithful because in order to be faithful, I guess there's someone that is having faith on God for that. So someone that God is having that sort of relationship with, and to be faithful, it implies that you're doing something that the other person is expecting from you. And what is someone to be expecting that in my worldview is someone that wants to do X, Y, and Z, someone that wants to find a way of escape and has the availability for it.
Is it reasonable to conclude from this passage as a Christian reads this that they should expect, given their past and their current circumstances, that God will provide a way out that they're able to take?
If they're in circumstances where they are pursuing God, where they want to have faith in God, where they want to serve God, where you have this, because again, there's two universal statements in Scripture: one that He will always reject the prideful, and other one that He will always accept the contrite and humble. So again, it'll be a universal claim for one group and a universal claim for the other.
That's fine.
I would always be dependent.
I'll move on to another question. Maybe I'll come back to this.
Okay, all right, fine.
That's fine.
Okay, so that's great that he's moving on. The audience has got enough of Israel to understand that Israel is just flailing about. It doesn't make sense to them. It's not clicking with the audience.
Yeah.
So you would agree that Hebrews 4:15 teaches that Jesus was tempted in every way we are, yet without sin?
Yeah, He was tempted in every way we are, yet without sin. Are you Pelagian in saying that
this is my time for questions.
Possible?
So does Hebrews 4:15 explain how Jesus' will operated in relation to his temptations?
Just saying again the question. What's the question again?
So does Hebrews 4:15 that Jesus was tempted in every way as we are, yet without sin, does that explain how Jesus' will operated in relation to his temptations?
Oh yeah, I would say, and it's part of my case. So it's the same way we're tempted, yet He was able to do otherwise.
Can you explain how Hebrews 4:15 teaches how Jesus' will operated in relation to his temptations?
Yeah, pretty much because influences are causal. So he was one person with the logos, and again, the logos is impeccable. The logos is incapable of hitting grandmas in the face. He's incapable of doing that. So again, he goes through temptation because.
So yeah, he's been taught at a theological seminary these talking points, and he thinks that providing the talking points is explained. So Calvinists, it's a normal thing, and I bring it up almost every podcast. They think that just explaining their reading of a verse is the same thing as arguing that that's what the verse means. They're not providing evidence for the verse meaning their thing. They're just using it as a talking point for their pre-existing theology.
For Israel, exegesis is read the verse and assert your presuppositional metaphysical commitment. Don't explain how A is entailing B or B is entailed by A. Just, hey, look at this verse and determinism is true because. And Drew is asking him, explain that. Where does it teach that in the text? Well, it teaches it because I believe it.
Yeah. Who is our friend who is debating Will Duffy? He's like, well, the text can work with my views. It's like, that's not what I'm asking. I'm just asking, where does the text teach your
Jeremy
views?
Wood? I think
is Jeremy.
Yeah.
Jeremy.
Yeah. Dominic and I were just doing a response video to him the other day. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is determined to do X, Y, and Z based on reasons, based on their beliefs, based on their ontology, and that's what is expected for every being based on their ontology. All the humans on their ontology, they want to do sin. They have other beliefs. They have other things.
I have another question.
That's why their choices are go the other way.
So my next question is: so when you say Jesus' will must have been determined, are you getting this from Hebrews 4:15, or are you reasoning to that conclusion philosophically?
So you're saying Jesus being determined? Yeah, that's in part of premise 4 of my argument. So that Jesus is necessarily aligned.
So you already granted. Premise 4, 19, paragraph.
So when you say that Jesus' will must be determined, are you? It's my turn for questions. So when you say that Jesus' will must be determined, are you getting that from Hebrews 4:15 or some other passage, or are you reasoning to that conclusion philosophically?
Yeah, how arguments work. So every single one of the premises is defended biblically, and I played a bunch of verses for every single one of the premises.
Let me ask this.
It is biblical, and it is an argument, and it follows from each of the premises.
Man.
So even if let's grant, for sake of argument, that Christ's will was determined, does that automatically mean that every event in all of history is determined?
Yeah, because he represents the human experience in every way. So
let's concede that all human decisions are determined. Let's concede that for sake of argument, even though I don't believe that. Does that mean that all of the other decisions, or
how do you not believe it?
Animals and rain and stuff is determined?
How do you not believe it if premise 2 and 4 already?
It's my turn for questions. You can ask questions on your turn. I'm asking questions.
How do you not believe it? Okay, I'm just saying. I'm just puzzled that.
Will you answer my question, please?
Okay, so it represents. So again, so we all agree about the world, about the nature of having a consistent nature, deterministic nature.
Let me ask the question.
Birds, when it comes to plants, animals, when it comes to the world. So I guess the only thing in question is of human will. So it's not really in question.
No. So what? Listen to the question. This is what I'm asking. Even if I grant, for the sake of argument, that Christ's will was determined, even though I don't think that you've proven that, and that all human wills by proxy are determined, does that mean that every single thing in all of the world is determined? And if so, how?
It would only be in reference to pretty much the will of humanity. So the argument that I brought is about the will of humanity, which is the thing in question, because usually we don't.
So
have
if I concede your argument,
on the rest.
If I concede your argument with regards to humanity, you've not proven that God has predestined everything from eternity past. You've only gone for human activity.
Boom.
Oh man, this is so funny.
He dropped a nuke on Izzy. Izzy wasn't expecting that.
Oh man. Nick says, can we add more questions because Israel's avoiding. I don't think it's needed. I think the audience sees the obfuscation and the misdirection, and I think they know what's going on, and so it allows. I think people get the idea.
I've gone from human activity, but I think it can be derived for the rest of things from the other passages, like for also the nature and the other stuff, other than just the will.
Right. What do you think is the closest passage that resembles the 4 criteria that I gave regarding all things having predestined, pre-creation language, and things like that? What's the clearest passage that you would say incorporates the most of those?
I mean, there's many passages, but for example, something very universal is Hebrews 1:3, where he sustains all things that includes objects, that includes nature, and that includes agents, and thus includes choices. It includes whatever system of choice they have. So if we take it literally, so you would have to say that it is not literal, like it's not really every that he sustains.
But you would agree that sustains is an ongoing action, right?
Yeah. So temporally, but it doesn't say for whom. So it is temporally for us, but not really for God.
Like when I was talking to Greg Boyd said, at one point I was an open theist Calvinist. I believe that God had like an inner life and was making real-time decisions on how to predestine everything. And so in that worldview, that's a possibility. Determinism is false. And so even in a Calvinistic mindset, determinism can be false. Yep. And Israel, I don't think Israel's tracking the argument. I don't think he's understanding.
Like Caleb said, Israel's like Dwight making Andy buy his Nissan Pathfinder.
God, I mean, you're an open theist, you deny classical theism, but I guess the rest of
the best passage. Let me finish. The best passage that you've given is Hebrews 1 for these 4 items, and as far as I can tell, it only has the word all in it. among the other three options as far as
I mean,
past
there's
tense language.
it's a weird thing that you want want proof text, like it could be implicit or explicit, as some of the other doctrines that we believe it involves from good and necessary consequence from the other passages. So I guess your standard, I'll just outright reject your standard and ask you to prove it.
It's weird that you want proof texts.
Gentlemen, that is round 2. So far, we've got 10 minutes each.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, so we'll see if we can jump ahead and see where they're at.
Uses this kind of language. It's a cumulative case. So how would you even have more coordinates than my hypothesis?
I'm not sure if I got to quote this earlier, but this is from Inspiring Philosophy. He says, shoot.
All right, let's get quicker.
In short,
what's that, Israel?
I just had those 10-20 seconds. 10 seconds. But yeah, anyways, go ahead. Joe.
Yeah, so if one has a reason for an action, that doesn't mean that the reason caused the action. So a reason or an influence can come upon my mind, but that doesn't mean, it doesn't follow that my mind then caused the action. And I would again
that's
say
great.
this is about whether or not the Bible.
That's awesome. That's what I wanted you to say. I wanted you to say it's so pretty much you're pretty much disagreeing with the language used. I'm not saying it necessarily follows. It follows from my argument, but people don't see it that way. I'm just saying, why do people believe? Why do people believe? So you don't have a coordinates. So how do you have more coordinates? So my belief in most of human history, most people in human history, even today, they say it is because of
you have a question?
X because of
You have a question?
yeah, we do X because of X because of explanation. You say you don't. So how do you have more coordinates than my hypothesis?
So how do I have more what? I'm sorry?
Coordinates. So how does your view relates more to the human experience? If everyone disagrees on the use language that you expect in my world, but not in your world.
I definitely don't think that determinism accords with human experience. I don't think that any.
No, that's not the question. That's not the question.
You're asking me. I'm trying to answer it. I'm getting there.
Yeah, but that's not my question.
I'm going to jump in. Especially for the audience sake, I just want to make sure that they're able to hear both sides and therefore make the best objective decision in terms of the positions being represented. So, Drew, let's hand it to you right now. Feel free to finish your thoughts. Once you're done, Israel will throw it back to you for either follow up on that. I got a question
for you, Donnie. Hey, Donnie. We can ask, we can re-guide the conversation. Like a good interruption would be when someone is not answering the question into a red herring. So by the rules of debate, if he's going to
what does this feel like? This feels like some guy complaining, like, "Oh, you're treating me." It feels like Matt Slick. What Matt Slick was?
You're not moderating the debate correctly, Mr. Moderator, because as we agreed to,
it's not a good look. Okay, so even if the moderator is failing at his job, being a man and making like Karen manager complaints doesn't look good.
There's two ways to address a monitor issue if you see one. Mr. Monitor, I thought we agreed that this was how we were going to do it. Instead of Mr. Moderator, what you're supposed to do in these situations is A, B, C, and then let it. No, Mr. Moderator, I thought we had agreed to this, or I think this is a reasonable question, or I thought this was unacceptable.
Right.
You can appeal to the moderator. Nothing wrong with that. But when you appeal to the moderator by telling him how to do his job, micromanaging him like your fake deity, that's a problem.
It appears very weak, and so you don't want to do Karen complaining, even with an unfair moderator. I've had them in the past. I've had unfair. You don't complain. You don't complain to the manager.
Impotent
representative. I have the right to deity. How to answer my question, like what my question actually is, so that he may actually answer it in not doing.
Yeah, I've been letting you guys the first 2 rounds basically go at it uninterrupted. I haven't stepped in, but just for now,
he's fighting
since
moderator.
We're in round 3, I do want to make sure that there's enough information on both sides being conveyed that the audience fully.
So, how do you have more coordinates if all of humanity uses language to say that we do X because of reasons or because of influences?
Yeah, so I would say again that just if we have a reason to do something, if a reason comes to my mind, that doesn't mean that it causes me to do that. And if I have a reason to believe something, then I can say, well, the reason why I believe that Christ rose from the dead is more plausible and more probable, whatever. Those are reasons.
That's fine. That's fine. So you're pretty much denying the whole language of how people use it. So you actually answered my question. That's fine. All right, ad hocness. So you already said that it is not because of reasons. It is not because of reasons, and it is not because of cause. Like you just choose because it just is. Is this ad hocness?
I said
you're being ad hoc.
What I said was that reasons don't cause your action, which is just to presuppose that reasons can only exist on determinism.
That's my point.
So I've not conceded that reasons.
Answer my question, please. If reasons are not causal, as you already admitted because of PAP, how are you not ad hoc? Pretty much, if there's no explanations and there's no influences being causal.
Yeah, so I didn't make any argument for PAP, and reasons are not
answer
causal.
The question. Answer the moderator. He's
I'm trying to answer the question.
Moderator, this man won't answer my question. Can you make this man answer? Okay, so what he wants to say, there's like clean the kitchen, or I'll give you spankings, kids. I don't actually say that to my kids. But if they clean the kitchen, yeah, there's a causal reason they clean the kitchen. It's the spankings. That doesn't mean that they couldn't have decided not to.
Look at Drew. Just look at Drew. Drew's loving this. He's like the best thing about debating Izzy is just to let Izzy be Izzy. It's like Drew's like, you're winning this for me. Thank you, Izzy.
That's very perceptive.
It is.
He knows that he's doing so well. He knows this is going real bad for Israel, and he knows that this is like has he been in debates before? I don't think he has.
He's won all the debates. He's done every debate. He's won every debate. He's amazing. He's
Drew is Drew been in debates before?
You're talking about Drew. Yeah, Drew's had a few. He's had a few.
He realizes this is going very well for his side, and this you don't want to look weak in a debate, and complaining to the moderator makes you look weak. Even if the moderator's bad, there's some bad.
And Donnie didn't do anything wrong here. Izzy's like asked a question. Drew goes, well, and he goes, answer the question. Mr. Moderator, he's not answering the question. It's like, I'm trying to answer the question.
Mom, make this man answer. Make it, please, moderator, step in.
Answer the question.
Okay, let's do this for this specific question. Israel, can you reiterate the question? Maybe take 10, 15 seconds. Then, Drew, we're going to give you 20 seconds to answer. And Israel, if you feel like he didn't answer after his 20-second response, then you can call him out on it. So, Israel, if you could please reiterate the question as clearly and concisely as you can. Drew, you'll get 20 seconds to respond. Go ahead, Israel.
How is your hypothesis not ad hoc?
Okay, so Nick makes a very good point. He says Drew's been fine, a bit underwhelming in some points, but Israel is losing this in buckets because online debates is about personality, it's about confidence, it's about how you carry yourself in discussion. Drew is calm, rational, putting out multiple points. Israel is complicated. He sounds whiny. He doesn't sound confident, and he's just not perceptually doing very well. And so if Drew was against someone like some sort of Calvinist who really knew their biblical material,
you're struggling for one to come to mind. Is that what you're trying to say?
Well, yeah, I don't know. They probably exist out there.
They exist.
Somebody who's very competent and competent and confident. Yeah, they might be able to win this debate against Drew because Drew's not like a super experienced. He's a nice guy. He's not a super experienced debater.
Who's Jeff Durbin? Like a Jeff Durbin type who would come in and be aggressive and push you on this. Like that might be a bad debate for Drew because Drew's a little more chill, a little more relaxed. I see what you're saying. I know what you mean.
If you're saying that influences or reasons are not causal when it comes to a person's choice. So if there's no reasons, no explanations, there's no influences, how is that not ad hoc? So it's pretty much arbitrary. It just is. You just choose. It just so happens to be what you chose. So how are you not being ad hoc?
Go ahead, Drew. 15, 20 seconds.
So I didn't say that there are no reasons, that there are no influences. I just said that the reasons and the influences do not cause our action. And even if I conceded that it does sometimes,
I'll move on. I don't want to waste my time. Hey, Donnie.
Okay, feel free to move on.
Go ahead. Not answering the question. All right, so we already went over 4, so it's already the best explanation, but I'll just go over the last one. So when it comes to parsimoniousness or simplicity, so when you see all throughout Scripture, let's say you see 50 examples of someone doing X because of Y, do you have a single explanation for every single one of those passages, or do you have different explanations for every single one of the passages?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question one more time? It's hard to understand.
Okay, so in your hypothesis, whenever we see in Scripture that someone does X because of reasons,
did you see that the Trump conference where that Indian guy tried to ask a question? He's like, I don't understand what you said. That's what it kind of feels like. And Israel talks. He talks very fast and frantically. And granted, we got it on multiple speed, but it takes some time to digest his questions. And Israel's getting very frustrated, and he's not realizing that what Drew is experiencing is what the audience is experiencing. And so he needs to he can't be pressing for time because it's still not looking good on him. Because if the audience doesn't understand the question and they empathize with Drew, that's not good for his side in the debate, perceptually.
Of why we do things. So we have, let's say, 50 passages. Do you have a consistent answer that answers all those 50 passages and not just many answers for each of the passages? What is that consistent answer? What is that simple answer?
Do I have a consistent answer that answers for all 15 of the passages that you gave? Is that what
passages that say, oh, he did X because of Y.
Yeah,
So
I mean, I just think that that's
what,
not how human language works. I don't think that he did X because of Y means that because this was the cause of the reason why he did it, and that it wasn't made in a libertarian sense.
you're not understanding, man. You're not understanding. So I'll give you one example. So John 5:19.
It's possible I'm not understanding.
Okay, the John 5:19. So the Son can do nothing by himself. He can only do what he sees the Father doing. So we're talking about capability. So Jesus does X. Why? Because he saw his Father do it. What is so if it's not the reasons being causal here, what is your explanation?
Yeah, I mean, I just see this as part of a larger discourse of him speaking to his audience and saying, I do what my Father does, and I am the perfect representation of his will. And when you see me, you see the Father. I don't view it as a...
Yes.
But it's not because of the reason, right? It's because it just so happens that shows just...
I mean, we keep going back to the because of reason. The reason doesn't have to be causative for you to have...
I'm not saying it has to. I'm saying just give your explanation. Give me your explanation. Your explanation, not mine. Yours.
Well, I just explained that I don't think that when Jesus says, I only do what the Father does, means that he is that all that everything is predestined, or that all of it sort of creates from eternity past. It's just like
okay, so let's go through another verse. Genesis 20:11. Abraham said, I did it because I thought there is no fear of God at all in this place. They will kill me because of my wife. So Abraham does X because he thought that they were going to kill him. So he attributes the reason to the age. But would you say you have a...
If people have reasons for the decisions they make, then determinism is true.
Okay, wait a minute. I could steal a peanut butter M&M, or I could steal a Snickers bar. Those are both those are both influences, right? Both opportunities, and I wanted to steal. In Israel's view, the reason I choose the Snickers, other than the peanut M&Ms, is because God from all eternity determined me to steal. Right? What Drew is saying is influences are not causal; they're influences. Just because you have reasons and an influence is a reason doesn't mean those reasons are in and of themselves causal.
Yeah, like so James, at the end of James, he says that you can save other people. If you could save these people, they're not the ones actually doing the saving work. God's doing the saving work. But they are a significant factor into the salvation of these individuals if they proselytize and things like that. And so it's not this a formulaic thing where that's the definitive factor, but in normal human language, when we're talking about reasons for things, we take major factors and say this caused this, even though there might be sub factors, there might be randomness, there might be uncertainty, there might be free will. It's just how human language works. And so he's trying to take a very idiosyncratic, we'll use that word again. That's a Roger Olson word when he's talking about the Calvinist definition of sovereignty. He says it's idiosyncratic. He's taking the idiosyncratic reading of these words, and he thinks the Bible is working as if it's like a metaphysical textbook, like a driver's manual or auto manual with very precise instructions about aircraft maintenance or something like that. Mm-hmm. It's just not how the Bible's written for normal people. Yep. So they're going to treat the words like normal people would treat these words. And I bet if we look through the Bible on the word can, we'll find a lot of examples of subverted cans or wills or must be's that are applied to human beings. It's just,
I mean, David will come down and he'll overtake the city of Keilah.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect
example. And so things that will happen don't happen. And because language doesn't work in this very mechanistic way that Israel wants this language to work.
Yep.
A different answer for that?
Again, I mean, I think you're just presupposing determinism here, saying I did X. Like
no,
Abraham's saying, I did this.
I want you to say.
Y.
I don't want you to say my response. I want you to say your response. What I'm saying is that there's all these plethora of verses in Scripture, and you have a different answer for all of them. So again, I'm just going to move on because I think you're just failed to understand the argument. So now we have an inductive defense. So premise one: humans make millions of choices in their lifetime, an estimated of 400 million choices for Jesus. Do humans make?
So that was a rhetorical move. He's trying to prime his audience, saying, "Hey, you're just not answering these questions." He's telling the audience what he wants the audience to believe.
Yeah,
but probably the audience is not buying it.
I can't see how they would. I can't see how they would, given what we're seeing here. Drew's like, listen, you're begging the question for determinism. This is what I'm saying. No, I don't care about what you're saying. I'm going to move on to my next question. It's like, because you're not answering the question. Well, wait a minute. I think he's done that repeatedly.
It doesn't work if the audience is empathizing with your opponent.
Humans make millions of choices in a day. Yes. Thousands. Okay. All right. Sure. Premise two. If libertarian free will is true, every moral choice could have been otherwise because you believe in PAP. So that introduces a non-zero probability of error. Is that true?
Well, you're telling me what I believe, and that's not what this debate is about.
Okay. So if libertarian free will is true, it's a conditional statement. If libertarian free will is true, every moral choice could have been otherwise. Is that true? You believe PAP, right? It's true.
I don't necessarily believe that every choice has to be otherwise. I think that
okay, many choices. So let's say not 50,000, but 20,000, whatever. So you could do otherwise in some of those.
Yes,
you can do otherwise. Yes. Okay. All right. That's fine. That's fine. Premise 3. Given the sheer number of choices, even a tiny probability of choosing wrongly makes it statistically near impossible that Jesus never sinned, because he could always do otherwise, but he pretty much win the lottery because in those 421 million choices, he always chose impeccably without sin. He always chose the right thing, right?
Yes, he always does the right thing.
I don't think Israel understands how debates operate and function. They function operates not based on listing out propositions, if then else's, then attacking propositions. It's more based on the volume of evidence, the way the evidence is presented, how the audience digests that evidence. And if the audience can't digest your evidence, you might have the best argument in the world. If the audience can't digest your arguments, you're not going to do well in a debate.
Well, he's got what, 7? I said 19. I'm joking, but he's got what, 7 premises with subsets, and he's trying to get Drew to affirm each one of those so he can declare victory. But Drew's like, for the purpose of debate, I can grant your premises, and you still haven't proven that it's biblical.
I love it.
All you've done is you've proven that your syllogism in a certain light might make sense philosophically, but it doesn't flow from the text of Scripture.
All right, so you ran to the 3 premises. So
I win. I win.
That Jesus sadly returned for
everybody, I win. According to the standards that I said, I win.
So you already granted.
If you refer to our pre-debate documents, paragraph 5, subsection B, I win the debate.
And apparently, somehow now, Drew can't sue Disney if he gets injured on a ride at their theme parks because he signed off on this pre-debate terms of services.
If an alligator eats his kid at Disney, he can't sue.
Yep.
Granted, the inductive argument, and you granted most of the points of the abductive argument, so you already lost the debate. Because now the only question is my argument valid? Is
he already said
argument valid? Not sound, valid. Do the premises follow from each other?
And Drew, take as much time as you need to respond, and then we'll move into round 4. Go ahead.
Honestly, I don't know the answer to that question because the arguments are quite difficult to follow. So that's all I have.
Well, I mean, you granted the other controversial
premises.
Correct. So yeah, you pretty much already lost the debate. But thank you for playing.
Drew, let's give you the last word to be fair, and then we'll move into round 4.
Well, I don't know if there's any point in me saying anything else if I've already lost the debate. I might as well just skip my cross-examination.
Exactly. Yeah.
No, we can go to the next round.
Okay, gentlemen, appreciate the energy, passion, and fast-paced cross-exam here. That concludes 3 rounds already. I feel like we just started with our cross-exam. We're moving in.
He's got to know. He's got to know he's doing really well comparatively.
Yeah.
And so
now, is it possible for him to have had 2 people that he could raise from the dead, like Lazarus or another person, and he could have raised either Lazarus or Steve? Is that possible?
Yeah, but there's a lot of the scripture says that if all the actings of Jesus were written, we wouldn't have enough space in all the books in human history. So I'm pretty sure he did it. I'm pretty sure he actually raised many people out.
That's not really an answer to my question.
Yeah, because it's the humans recording it. It's the apostles recording it. Is it possible?
What I'm asking you is, and then I'll ask this one more time, and then I'm going to move on. But if Jesus was standing in front of 2 dead people, would it be possible for him to raise one or the other? Is he able to raise one or the other and still be necessarily aligned with God's will, with both of those options being aligned with God's will?
So if there's 2 possibilities and one is ontologically better than the other, let's say for whatever reasons or whatever corresponds to God's will, or whatever corresponds to the person.
Okay, here's a mask off moment. So Israel thinks that God is like a utility, a util maximizing monster, and he has to take decisions that are going to equate to the best path within human history. And so he doesn't actually think that there's going to be these neutral choices. It doesn't sound like he's saying that. It sounds like he's setting up the util monster argument.
State of mind. If one is better than the other, he's going to choose the better one. Because if God is perfect, he's going to choose the better option out of the 2. And I'm just saying that
sounds like
one is going to necessarily be better.
Like no, he's not able to because he's
no, that's not what
to choose the ontologically better option.
Yeah, he'll choose the better option. He'll choose the better option. Yes.
No.
He's unable to choose.
So are you saying that there's no better options? Just a clarifying question because I don't understand. Are you saying there's no better options between humans? Is that what you're saying?
I'll move on.
I know why you move on, right? I know why you move on.
So
I wonder how that's landing to the audience.
Like a little chihuahua yipping at your grandma's, and you're just like, "Why do you keep this thing around?"
I know why you're moving on. You don't want to deal with my. You're okay. We got your answer. No, God can't do it because it's not util maximizing.
In what does Luke 2:52 say? I wrote that down here.
252. Let me see.
Oh no, never mind. Let's not worry about that one.
No, okay. All right.
So in one of your arguments, you talked about the different human possibilities of all of the different human choices that are in front of us. Do you believe that God can influence a person to do something like eat Cocoa Puffs cereal tomorrow morning for me without having determined everything in all of the universe? Do you think that's possible for him to do?
No, because if you have the principle of alternative possibilities, influences are causal, and if in order for an influence to get to the conclusion you want to, it must be causal, it must follow from whatever the influence.
God can't determine us what cereal we eat tomorrow without determining everything in history. This is fantastic.
Oh wow, I missed that part.
This is not going well for Israel.
No.
Yes, or the reason is.
How much time do I have left, Donnie?
You have 3 minutes.
Run out of questions?
Yeah, I mean, you didn't make many biblical arguments, so I'm just.
Is that a question? Is that a question, Drew? Is that a question? You're feeling good? I mean, we can stop him, man, if you don't feel good.
I think that
I think he's sweating.
He's so insecure, and it's so evident. Like, what are you doing in this space, dude? Sit, humble yourself, come at a humble heart. Go sit at Jesus's feet instead of John Calvin's.
And so,
like, go learn.
I think he knows that the audience doesn't perceive it very well, so he's trying to prime the audience with any little criticism or critique that he sees in Drew, but he doesn't understand that it comes off as petty, and it comes off as whiny and insecure.
Well, and every time anybody in the side chat will even note that, he'll see that as somebody coming from the Soteriology 101 gang, and he's already declared there's this animus and hostility, and everybody hates everybody, and Drew's like, we don't hate you, we just find you annoying, and we don't like your arguments. Like, we don't hate you, dude. Like, we want you to know Jesus and like experience the freedom there, and not be this I'm not going to use words that I normally don't use, but Israel makes me want to use those kind of words. But we're like, we don't hate you, we just don't like your behavior, we don't like the way you carry yourself, we don't like your doctrine. But he's now projecting this on to Drew, and he's being unnecessarily caustic. And anytime somebody in the side chat will be like, dude, you're being a jerk, he's going to automatically assume, oh, well, that's one of them, they're not with us.
That's my.
It's like, no, you're just being a jerk.
That's when Jesus said that you'll be persecuted. That's my persecution.
I think that's fine. I'm good.
All right, man. We're good. All right.
Okay, gentlemen, let's wrap up our 4 rounds of cross-exam there. Roughly 40 minutes.
Oh no, he brought back the slides, bro.
We do have
he brought back the
opportunity
slides.
to have a closing statement each. And so closing statement wise, we do have 5 minutes. This positions tonight and to challenge those comments.
So one thing I'll give props to Drew.
As you'll know, tonight I walked him through, and he affirmed each of my premises.
Listen.
And even though I didn't offer any real strong biblical evidence, and I wouldn't let Drew answer my questions, he still affirmed them. Therefore, I went according to the rules I set forward before this debate began.
Nick says machoism towards Drew doesn't work. It perceptually doesn't work, and so Israel needs to study human behavior more and to see what resonates with normal people for winning debates, and it's not this behavior. And so you got to start studying human nature. Anyone will be behooved by studying how people think and operate, and how they react, and what issues they react to. People they're not going to react positively to a
tone, volume, pacing, and body language are critical to master if you want to excel in debate, in addition to being able to be an effective communicator and having well-reasoned arguments and having a dedication to pursuing truth. These are all paramount if you want to be an effective debater. And unfortunately for Israel, he has zeros in all of those categories.
He's a young man. He has a lot to learn. He just had a kid. Maybe he'll learn from this debate a little bit about how reality works.
Yeah, hopefully.
Is that I was expecting him to make more heresy, so I had over here a heresy counter, and at least he avoided, and just outright granted, which helped my case because he.
Oh no! What's this, a heresy counter? Oh,
he's like, I expected Drew to issue all these heresies, but he avoided them. So like, look, man, he's not heretical.
This is I feel okay. So maybe I'm a little narcissistic here. I think he's taking a cue from my drinking game for Matt Slick, and he's trying to do a heresy counter for Drew, and he thinks it's going to work the same way. It's not. You're introducing this in your closing round. It's not like a thing, and all the heresies about Trinitarianism or whatever,
completely
like,
irrelevant.
Like people
Completely
don't
irrelevant.
know about these things. They don't
To the
care
debate,
about these
yeah,
things.
to the debate, is determinism biblical? The Trinity is irrelevant. Right? I'm not saying that the doctrine itself isn't true. I'm saying for the purpose of this debate, it's irrelevant.
I have this
for the purpose of this debate, right? Baptism, whether we should baptize infants or not, is irrelevant to this debate. Like, we're debating, does the Bible teach that everything is determined? And he's over here going, oh, he affirmed the two wills, but he got this part wrong. Therefore, I win this debate on a completely unrelated matter. And it's like,
this is so funny. Like, he didn't name these heresies as they're occurring. No one's tracking. So all they're seeing, the whole audience has seen him just pull up this chart that he made, like out of being petty throughout this debate with check marks. That's all they're seeing.
I said, get out the red string and the black and white photos and the cork board. I saw this coming. I just want you to know, I am omniscient. I called this, Chris, almost an hour ago.
I'm dying inside. This is so it's so like embarrassing. You'll be like watching a movie and the characters will be making like really bad mistakes and destroying relationships, and you're just like dying inside. I'm a little bit dying inside.
It's bad writing.
He's started ranting premises, premise 1, premise 2, premise 3, premise 4. I guess I just made him work more a little bit for premise 5. So I guess I give him some props for not appealing to heresy. Like, he literally surprised me. I thought he was going to be a heretic, and I was going to deem him as a false teacher after this. But instead, he just granted my argument pretty much. So we spoke about the different premises.
Don't talk about those things. If you had unfulfilled expectations about heresy accusation, don't even mention it. What are you doing?
He's helping Drew. Hey, I thought he was going to be a big old heretic, and he wasn't. Look at this guy.
He thinks that people watching are going to be in his mindset and say, oh yeah, since you were thinking those things were logical and rational. They're not in your mindset. It doesn't look good. If you had those thoughts, don't mention them.
Yeah.
Don't say them.
So I'm going to put them on the screen. Can you show my screen, Donnie?
Yes. Okay, here goes premises.
Yeah, so we spoke about this argument right here. So he granted premise 1 that Christ is one person with two wills. He granted premise 2 that Christ's human will fully represents the human experience in every way. He granted premise 3 that if Christ has a human will that fully represents the human experience in every way, then his human will must operate as our will does. He granted premise 4 that Christ's human will was necessarily aligned with the divine will. And then I made him work for premise 5, which we're going to go. But first, I want you to see this argument right here in my screen. And I took this to Dr. Ryan Mullins, to Dr. Christopher Clues, and we all agreed. And not just them, but I debated with 15 people.
What are these names? I don't know these names. If you're name dropping, people have to know the names. Oh, Nick says I didn't have Israel carrying Drew's water on my bingo card. Oh, no. What are you doing, Israel, my friend? Oh.
In order to debate this over here, and if there's a universal agreement, is that this argument is valid. So if you already granted the premises 1 through 5, and it's valid as premise 6 and 7 just follow from the others, it gets to the inevitable conclusion that does the Bible affirms determinism. So
if I were Drew,
I
would get out a piece of paper. I hope he's listening to me, Drew. I hope you're listening to me, buddy.
It's the past.
If I was Drew, I'd get out a piece of paper. Hold on, I'd get out a piece of paper and I would say, I've been carefully diagramming all of your points, and I'd hold up a picture of a goldfish or a little kitten, and I'd be like, "This is what I mapped out following your arguments." It doesn't follow from the text.
Your points say that you're a Sagittarius. I don't know anything about astrology.
And we're going to go over some of the things we went through in premise 5, which I guess was the most controversial, where I had to press him the most. So we went over causal influences. I guess he was not understanding my arguments. So we went over here first with this abductive case. So when it comes to explanatory power, so libertarian free will denies that we do X because of reason. So he denied it because he affirms the principle of alternative possibility. So he already denied it. So if so, then there's no, when you see a verse that says that such person did X action because of Y reason.
So Nick says valid doesn't mean true. And so there's a really good book by William Lane Craig, and it's Philosophical Foundations for a Christian Worldview. And it points out that there could be a logically valid argument that isn't true. And so premise 1, all cats are red. Premise 2, CC is a cat. Conclusion, CC is red. So yeah, so it's a valid logical syllogism, but it's just not true because like the premises are false.
That's it. You just challenge the yeah.
And so if any of he had like 7 premises. It's like if any of these things, and Drew didn't know what he was agreed to. Like Jesus has 2 wills. No, Jesus doesn't have. People have one will, but our wills have conflicting priorities. We don't get everything we want. There's the song that Trump always plays. You can't always get what you want in his rallies. You can't have your cake and eat it too. That's not a possibility. There's trade-offs in life that we have to. So we have a will, but our will has to deal with trade-offs.
The person in Christ assumed, the divine person of the Word assumed a human will. That doesn't entail then that there are 2 wills. It just entails that if you're affirming the hypostatic nature, you have the human essence and the divine essence. But if you want to go into wills, now you're talking about persons have a will, and so he's going to end up with a duplication of persons within the hypostatic union instead of 2 natures united under one person.
Yeah,
so he's actually committing a heresy right here and doesn't realize it.
Well, yeah, it's all a heresy fest. Like Jesus says, "Not my will, but yours be done." Jesus's will was not to die. He did not want to die.
That's it,
and that's understandable.
Really explain it. So he doesn't really have any explanatory power because it says, well, it's not really what it means. Like actually, you could have done otherwise on the influence that it's saying right there. So yeah, he doesn't have any explanatory power as he admitted it as a present in the cross-examination. Again, he granted also the explanatory scope that all throughout the Bible we see Jesus and the biblical authors attributing their actions to reasons. So I had a plethora of verses. We can go over like some of those verses. Let's see, what are they? Yeah, some of these examples on the screen, if you want to take a screenshot or take a picture, whatever, or some of the many, I mean, just what I fit in the screen and what I had to fit in my presentation. But if you look throughout Scripture, you're going to see it flooded with verses of agents doing X because of Y. So I mean, you cannot say that argument is not biblical. I give a plethora of biblical passages for every single one of the premises. So again, going over here with explanatory scope. So
is anyone in the comments agreeing with him, saying that this is like logical and rational?
Even Colton Carlson, who's his friend, was like, "Don't take this debate.
Oh,
don't do it,
man.
Don't do it." And he said so in the side chat.
Oh, Israel.
You don't see his groups coming out and applauding his arguments and his argumentation, his debate style. They're not coming in going, "Bravo, buddy." That group is really quiet right now.
Oh, man.
Really quiet.
That a hypothesis must win over another hypothesis to be the best explanation. So we already have had him grant 2 of them. On the third one, he just didn't understand it. So according to
he just didn't understand it. I'm reminded of your debate with Rogue, where Rogue was so confident that he would just demolish you.
Yeah, it was fun.
And then he gets into the debate, and it's just like a slaughter. And then afterwards, it's just this outpour, waterfall of cope, and explaining. He's like, he was so confident. He's like, "Oh, all these other people have failed. I'm gonna pick up the mantle. I'm gonna do it."
Oh yeah, no, he has a messianic complex. Like recently, I don't know if you paid attention to it, but he's called himself the gospel. Like, I mean, like the guy has but he did announce he's shutting down his YouTube channel and he's going to come back as an unnamed anonymous channel. So, there's that.
Yeah, it's that guy's has like serious mental issues. So
he does.
When I've interacted with people on YouTube who have serious mental issues, and this like, you just don't want to interact. You just stop responding at some point because you're just feeding their complex. Like, no, I don't want to do that. He's still talking. Premise 5, inductive defense.
Yeah, his arguments are awful.
Improbable, making libertarian free will at least questionable or astronomically improbable. And if he believes in the fine-tuning argument and that abiogenesis is the act of a intelligent design and not just random stuff that it's so astronomically improbable, yeah, then if it's ridiculous to grant the atheist any of that, it's ridiculous for him to have a very improbable view on premise 5. So yeah, premise 5 and
moderator, he's still talking. Moderator, he's still talking.
Okay, Israel, thank you for the concluding statement. In light of the comprehensive technical nature of tonight's debate, I did give you a little extra time in your concluding statement, especially because we didn't have rebuttals for this debate. And therefore, Drew, we're going to give you equal time to respond and also have your concluding statement. So you have 7 minutes. I will start the timer right now. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would remind the audience that the debate tonight is determinism biblical? I felt like there were a lot of metaphysical, philosophical arguments being brought to the table. There was a lot of seeking to refute libertarian free will. The debate topic is not whether or not libertarian free will is true. Libertarian free will can be false, and hard determinism is true, which all of us Christians would presumably reject. So, I offer two examples that are plausible and probable for libertarian freedom, and Israel chose not to address either of them. Now, if we had had a rebuttal, it probably would have been much easier to do that, but Israel was not keen to do rebuttals, as it makes it difficult. You know, he's not able to address that in that way directly. He has to ask questions, but he chose not to ask questions about it. That's fine. That's up to him. I'm just looking at the conclusion of one of the things that he has here. The claim that Jesus had libertarian free will but never sinned is horrendously improbable, making LFW questionable in this case. So if LFW is questionable, therefore the Bible teaches determinism, I feel like Israel came to the debate with the wrong topic tonight. That's not what his burden was to prove. Is determinism biblical? Originally, we had decided and agreed to talk about, does the Bible teach determinism? Israel.
Okay, so I just put in the comments, I said, question for Israel, pre-debate, did you press for rebuttal rounds to be removed from the schedule? And the answer is probably yes. They'll probably not ask the question, but that's probably what's going to happen.
Decided that he didn't want to do that. He wanted to do is determinism biblical? That's fine. But if determinism were biblical, we would see this all and have predestined. There would be at least some kind of these passages stitching them together. He chose not to do that. He pointed to 1 Hebrews 1 passage that says that God sustains all things. And from that, we're supposed to conclude that every thought, every sin, and every simple desire was predetermined by God. None of that follows. He also talked about how, I don't know who reviewed the doctors that reviewed some of his arguments, but the idea of Jesus being necessarily aligned with God's will, it seems to me that Jesus can be perfectly and necessarily aligned with God's will without everything having to be predestined. That needs to be an argument that is made from that. And it was not successfully made tonight. When Israel sees passages in John 5:19 and doesn't read into 20, granted, he sees a metaphysical Jesus is looking at the Father and doing what the Father does. And yet, obviously, this is not some kind of strict metaphysical equation that Jesus is basing his actions off of. This is simply him saying that I do what the Father's will is doing, what the Father is doing. You see him say in John 14, I believe it is, if you see me, you've seen the Father. These are the reasons why we've seen the Father, is because of his character and because of what he does, not because of the mechanistics of how this works out.
Yeah, I don't think Drew had a predefined closing argument. I think he's doing this ad hoc.
Yeah, he is. I think he's going as he goes.
Side wants some kind of mechanistic explanatory power for libertarian free will decisions. If we were going to talk about that, then the debate premise should have been something else and not is determinism biblical. It should have been, does libertarianism or determinism best account for reality or our decisions making? That wasn't the topic of the debate. So if I've provided 2 plausible and probable examples of libertarian freedom, which is just a by the by, it's still his burden to prove determinism, then this immediately disproves determinism because he hasn't addressed it. And when I pressed on the Romans 7 question, he realized at first that he had affirmed libertarian freedom, probably because it's very intuitive, as he claimed somehow that determinism is intuitive to our thought-making processes. I don't know how, but when I asked if God predetermined their sin, were they able, given their circumstances and past history, to take the way out and bear this temptation? He initially said yes to that. And then when he realized that was a denial of conditional ability, he took it back. When I asked about if they could never take the way out, how's God faithful for providing it? I didn't hear a clear answer to that. He started talking about other people being faithful. The question is not about whether Christians are being faithful.
I asked the same question. I just noticed you didn't word it very well.
In our temptation,
we double up on it.
And being able to, not being able to, him providing a way out for us that we are able to bear it. And it seems to me that if you're going to say that if a sin is predestined and we're going to attempt to take this at face value, you're going to have 2 conflicting ideas that aren't working together, which is where you have all of this conditional ability, which is why I was very careful to phrase in my question, given their circumstances and past history, in giving my 2 examples for libertarian freedom, which went unaddressed. And ultimately, if you're talking to a struggling believer about these sorts of things as a pastor or as someone that's working in college ministry, trying to explain to them how God gave them a way out in spite of the fact that they were predestined to sin, that they were somehow able conditionally, if your desire and situation were different, like it's completely absent from this passage in 1 Corinthians 10:13. It's completely absent from the passage in Deuteronomy 30. You have to read these things into these passages and presuppose determinism and bring it to the text to then explain how it's possible that it could fit. Okay, it's possible. Is it plausible? Is it probable? We've not heard any arguments for that tonight. And I don't think that we've heard clear biblical arguments for determinism. Now, I want to close with sharing something here from a philosopher named Andre. Oh man, I've forgotten his last name, but he says, quote, now you get somebody who's a dyed-in-the-wool Calvinist, let's say, and they're a theological compatibilist, that is determinist. I don't think compatibilism helps them one bit. Compatibilism is a theory of free agency. If you've got divine manipulation, if you've got God doing things, appealing to compatibilism to help out is kind of icky. There's the ick factor. The view is that the view of a deity being worth worshiping? I don't think so. But then secondly, I just don't see it working. Compatibilism is supposed to be, as it was formulated in the 20th century, earliest 21st century context, a thesis about impersonal causation and not the activity of another agent. That's where I don't see compatibilism helping out the theological determinists. You see, I mean, if we're going to have a philosophical discussion, we can have a philosophical discussion. And then you've got philosophers saying this sorts of things, that compatibilism, determinism is just not helping you out on a theistic model. It's supposed to be impersonal. And it's just not following from this biblical evidence. Because Moses had a reason for his wife for doing what he did, therefore.
So that's a really good point that Drew's making. Like, the Bible is written practically. what can we do in the here and now to make our life better, to get God to do things for us in the here and now? And determinism undermines all of that. That's just that's not what the Bible's about. That's not what they're talking about. That's not what the Psalms are about. When they're talking about God, show your face and solve these wrongs, they're not determinists. They think that God is fluid and dynamic, and as the Bible says 50 times over, God is living and dynamic.
Amen.
Or God has predestined everything, therefore determinism is
20
true.
seconds left.
Help me. Someone help me understand that argument. I don't think that Israel has shouldered the burden of proof tonight. I don't think he's made clear arguments that people can understand and respond to. And he's also gish galloped. I mean, there's so many different arguments here to choose from and respond to. It's very.
Is there? I think he had like one argument, and I think that his argument was just it was a convoluted argument that no one could follow.
Yeah.
It feels like Israel had one argument. Does he have more than one argument? It doesn't. It doesn't feel.
Well, his
like
strategy was to make claims and get Drew to grant them for the purpose of the debate, and say, well, that still doesn't flow, that determinism is biblical. And then at the end go, look, he granted all my premises, therefore my argument is biblical. And it's like, no. Like that's an invalid syllogism. Like you don't understand. Like he's come in and he said, is determinism biblical? And your premises do not demonstrate that it is. They just demonstrate a philosophical cohesiveness within your presuppositions. That's all they do.
For sake of argument, let's pretend all his premises demonstrate determinism. No one can follow his premises. Yeah. So for all practical reasons, even if all his premises lead to determinism, Drew could affirm every single one of them, and no one in the audience would know any different. It's too convoluted of an argument.
Yeah,
it's not a good argument.
It's a mess.
Difficult to hone in on. But I'll let the audience be the deciders of the debate. Thank you.
Okay, gentlemen, that concludes our comprehensive opening statements, 4 rounds of cross-exam, fast-paced cross-exam, and concluding statements. And so, gentlemen, I appreciate the engaging debate on the question. The important question, is determinism biblical? We now have plenty of audience questions to Timothy 2:4 and 2 Peter 3:9 show determinism or compatibilism. And why don't we start? Well, I guess, Drew, you just ended with your concluding statement. Israel, did you want to start with this one? We can pull up this
yeah, if you can pull him up. Do you have a Bible to put it on the screen?
Yeah, let me grab it here.
Yeah, because I don't know on top of my head.
So the 1 Timothy 2:4 passage, who will have all men to be saved and to come under the knowledge of the truth. So why don't we start with that one?
I would say I would actually say that it does not entail necessarily neither determinism nor compatibilism nor libertarian free will. It's just I think it's non sequitur. So oftentimes when Calvinists and non-Calvinists try to go about the Bible, like actually most proof texts out there don't really help one way or the other, because as long as there's just one model.
So I'd like to point out that they're using this word will, and so if the word will is used in conjunction with a verse that Calvinists could latch on to say, oh, this said this will happen and this happened. They'll say, oh, see, the use of this word will is deterministic. But in this verse where all men are going to be saved, it's not, they don't take it in the same way, because it doesn't behoove their argument. They read it like a normal person. And this tends to be a double standard of reading comprehension you find within Calvinism, that anytime a word can be taken to behoove them, they'll take it that way. And then they'll just ignore counterexamples and just deny that it's a possibility for their particular reading of words and verses. And so we'll see if Drew picks up on that.
One model out there. There's many, but let's say there's just one model that just so happens to answer a verse of making it possible within either framework. It already makes it so that it does not entail either determinism or libertarian free will. So yeah, I guess as for that one you showed, I don't think it entails either. I don't know about 2 Peter 3:9. Maybe if we can show it.
Yeah, so 2 Peter 3:9, the Lord is not slack concerning his promise, as some men count slackness, but is long suffering to usward, not willing that any should perish, that all should come to repentance.
That's temporally, the temporal condition. So yeah, I would see like how a libertarian free will proponent can consistently listen to that verse. I would say that it tells determinism. To be honest, sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Good question. Thank you.
Appreciate it, Israel. Drew, so let's hand it to you now. We'll start with the first question, or the first verse. This one here, 1 Timothy 2:4.
Well, I assume that embedded in this question is probably something like, God is all powerful. So here it says that he wants all to come to the truth. And so is he doing that in a deterministic manner? I don't know that this passage really speaks to the determinism debate. I certainly think that it's more reconcilable on something like Arminianism or provisionism than it is on Calvinism, but that's not what the debate's really about today.
Well, if God wills something, and if determinism lines up with God's will, and then God's will doesn't accomplish that, that does speak to determinism in some sense. Drew might be dropping the ball a little bit here. So God wills that everyone be saved, but everyone's not saved. God's will is not being done on earth as it is in heaven. And that, of course, that's why Jesus tells us to pray that God's will be done on earth as it is in heaven, because that's something God can do with effort, but God has to give effort to do those things.
And yeah, I mean, same thing. 1 Peter 3:9. It talks, that passage is less about God not willing that any perish, but the word can be understood as not planning for any to perish. So you could implicitly argue against determinism in that.
Okay, so this is a Drew friendly question, and I guess it's a little bit of my pet peeve because I've set up debaters with favorable questions for them to really drive home the point. And Drew might be dropping the ball just a little bit on this favorable question to say, hey, God's will is not being accomplished. Determinism's not true. And so it feels like he's dropping the ball a little bit.
If God has determined for some to perish, then he has planned for some to perish, which would contradict 2 Peter 3:9. But yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Drew, appreciate it. Okay, let's move on to our next question here. Comes in from Chris Lucas, the Protestant View Live, $10 super chat. Thank you for the support and question. So it looks like it's directed at you, Israel. So we'll consider it for you. And he's wondering, under determinism, if you are a parent, if you punish the child for misbehaving, aren't you just taking out your anger about what God determined on an innocent child? Shouldn't you just pray to God?
No. So when it comes to anger, that's a state of mind. So states of mind don't necessarily follow from determinism. I guess
God didn't determine
the issue
states
is
of
that
mind.
There's several ways that one could be determined to think about, like to reflect on a certain action, or here the action is to punish a child for misbehaving. But it could be the case that one.
Yeah, they always want their cake and to eat it too. Yep. Like you could have anger, but yeah, that's anger. It's not predetermined from God.
Yeah, God didn't determine your anger.
No, because it is punishing a child for misbehaving with a good attitude, not with anger, would actually be something that is more expected to work on determinism. Because in the other way, influences are causal. So you hit him, and it really does nothing to cause a libertarian free will choice, because it just pops out, and it could be that he now believes he's good. Could be that now he will keep doing the same thing. You don't know it, as it violates the principle of sufficient reason. But yeah, so states of mind like anger don't necessarily follow from like I wouldn't necessarily follow from determinism. It depends on the previous beliefs and influences.
I appreciate it. Drew, floor is yours. Go ahead.
Yeah, under determinism, if you're a parent, if you punish a child for misbehaving, aren't you just taking out your anger about what God determined on an innocent child? Yeah, I mean, if your child misbehaves on determinism, then God determined it. If you're taking out your anger on that child, then God determined your anger as well. Shouldn't you just pray to God? I think this is kind of what one of the problems with determinism from a theistic Christian worldview is that it seems to logically imply a sort of complacency with what God has determined. Thankfully, it seems that few Christians are consistent with this if they are theistic determinists. But regarding the shouldn't you just pray to God, I mean, that would be determined as well. So.
Hey, well, will I get a chance to rebut?
Yes, Israel, you get the last word because it was directed at you. So go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So he committed the East odd fallacy for when it comes to fatalism, and Sociology 101 folks always commit this fallacy when they argue for fatalism, just because it is the case that something is determined. That's
rent-free, man.
It ought to be the case that it happened. And I'll give one example. For example, like if you write a novel, if you are dreaming a story, you may be determining everything that happens in the novel and in the dream that you're having. Yet it doesn't follow that you believe your characters ought to do X, Y, and Z, as you'll be the grounding of what you think it's good or bad as they play in your moral realm. So you could, and we do this with stories all the time. So not because C.S. Lewis has made a novel that just so happens to have some evil in it, doesn't follow that C.S. Lewis things that you should do evil, not because it was determined there in the story. So
what? Okay, so his fallacy is just because you're predestined to do something doesn't mean the author thinks that people should do things in a fictional setting. Okay, so in Grand Theft Auto, you could beat to death a hooker with a baseball bat, and those are computer images. They're not real people. The Calvinists think that God is really taking real hookers and beating them, assuming that a hooker's ever been beat to death with a baseball bat. Calvinists think that God is really taking real hookers and beating them to death with baseball bats. I don't think the analogy follows, because pixelated people are just pixelated people. They're not real people. They don't have moral value. And in the Calvinist system, God is the one predetermining and forcing these things to happen, and they say it's for his greatest glory. That's why God predestines everything. God needs that hooker beat to death with that baseball bat. It's not the same thing as Grand Theft Auto.
This is why I love being on your show, Chris, because I'll tune out for just a second as I'm typing something, and I come back and we're talking about beating pixelated hookers, and I'm hoping Rogue Psychophant is watching, because that needs to be turned into a parody song right there. There's some choice meats on what you just said right there.
That was the big moral outrage when Grand Theft Auto came up. They're like, "Did you know you could beat to death a hooker with a baseball bat and you get your money back that you gave?" No, you actually don't get your money back. It's just the normal NPC spawning money that you get back. It's not the money you actually gave that person, and so they didn't code it correctly.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, yeah, because I that's not the money I gave the hooker. I gave the hooker more money than that. I didn't get my money back. News media lied to me.
He's committing an is-ought fallacy or Hume's guillotine. So yeah, he's Drew's being fallacious here.
Thank you, Israel, for that final word. Okay, next one here comes in from Irresistible Truth. $10 super chat. Appreciate the support. And the question for tonight's debate. Let's see who it's for. If human choices are libertarian and undetermined, how can God actively work in someone to produce both their desires to will and actions to work when this violates the essence of libertarian free will? See Philippians 2:13. So it's for you, Drew. Does it look like it's more directed at you?
Yeah, just for him. I know Irresistible Truth is for Drew.
Okay, appreciate it. Go ahead, Drew. It's for you.
Hey, yeah, we cannot hear you, Drew.
We may have lost your audio.
I muted my keyboard and also my mic. And only muted one, but I'll try to
good.
So it says, "Therefore, my dear friends, just as you've always obeyed, so now, not only in my presence, but even more in my absence, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. For it is God who is working in you both to will and work according to his good purpose. Do everything without grumbling and arguing." If human choices are libertarian and undetermined, how can God actively work in someone to produce both their desires to will and actions to work when this violates the essence of libertarian free will? Yeah, I mean, I would just say, God works in us by his Holy Spirit and by his word, and desires come to us and his word influences us. But that doesn't necessarily mean that he is determining our choice there.
So here's the thing Calvinists do. It's like, if God can influence people, like they'll say, why do you pray to God if we have free will to influence people, to make them become Christian? Because God can do things. Yeah. Like God can take a reluctant prophet, Jonah, swallow him with the large fish, and coerce him physically and threaten his life to get him to go preach to Nineveh. God can do things. And so in determinism, the Jonah story doesn't make sense. It only it makes sense in a situation in which God needs to physically coerce people to change their motivations in order to do the things that God wants. And that's what we pray for. So if you pray for your friend, you're praying for God to work into their life, remind them of certain aspects, flag their memories, put situations in which they are reminded of past conversations, maybe, or dispositioned towards Christianity. That's what you're praying for.
The whole exercise of God having to coerce by threat or by force somebody to do something what he wants is in and of itself proof against theistic determinism, because otherwise you have God thwarting his own plans. It's silly. It's absolutely silly. But here they are arguing, well, why, if your view of libertarian free will is true, like, dude, you're arguing that God decreed Jonah to rebel, and just so that he could come in and have a big fish swallow him, and so you have God undermining his own views or his own desires and his own plans, and you have a house divided. Is that what you're telling me?
It's all a facade. So everything is fake and gay in Calvinism. Like, none of reality, how it plays out.
Even when God speaks, according to Augustine, wasn't God speaking. It's all a facade. It's all a play put on by some, like Plato's cave. We're just seeing shadows.
Yeah, and so using C.S. Lewis's own argument against atheism, if that is the case, if everything that we think is predestined by God for some unknown reason, we can't trust our own thinking. And so in Calvinism, I think you've made this argument before, that we can't be assured of our own thoughts and our own reasoning.
That's a big one I make. Yep. And actually, Caleb, right now, as we get to it, he just brought up the whole how do you reconcile your every way of Hebrews with original sin, which you affirm? So we're going to see that here in just a minute as well, because we got a little bit behind.
I mean, again, the Bible is not a metaphysical handbook, and there's no word here like determines you to do these things.
Well, jump forward.
Is outside of nature correct? Question mark. Drew, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so if we're talking about the Bible, the word predestined only occurs, I think, 4 or 5 times. There's one occasion in which the word determinate is used. I believe it's in either Acts 2 or Acts 4. And so, I mean, when we're talking philosophy, predestined and determined are essentially the same thing, because I thought that this debate was going to be primarily about the data in the Bible and that we were going to be looking at context and things like that. I said that determinism is effectively God has predestined everything, so that we could hone in on a few different passages that taught that. But I'm okay with predestined and determined for the kind of philosophical definition of determinism. That's fine by me.
Appreciate it, Drew. Israel, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, something that's been bothering me, like how horrible Drew is is at representing my position. Like, utterly destroyed anything I was saying throughout not just the debate, but even now in the Q&A. So he says that my positions are not necessarily biblical, but I guess he would be calling Ryan Mullins, pretty much the leading one of the leading scholars on conciliar Christology, to be wrong, because he thinks that the premises, since they're biblical implicitly, because they can be implicitly in the first couple premises, it follows for the conclusion of determinism biblical. Again,
I don't think this is resonating with the audience.
You don't understand. My position is biblical because this guy said my premises, which are based on my metaphysical presuppositions, are based in biblical truths that we expounded upon to support my biblical metaphysical. It's like, dude, you're just losing it.
You're just Israel.
You're just losing it. You're spinning out of control here, Izzy.
My friend. You can't be doing this. It's not a good look.
You're not representing my position correctly, because this guy you don't know about said my position is biblical.
And there's this guy nobody heard about, and he said I'm right. And like, okay, what's the audience thinking? What's happening?
Dr. Christopher Clues, both are PhDs, and not just them, but many others, and they all say that it is a valid argument. So
they got a degree. They have a piece of paper that says they know what they're talking about, given by other people who they also have degrees, and that degrees say that they know what they're talking about. Therefore, I'm right. I'm correct, guys.
Stop saying that it's not biblical. As for predestined, using predestined, not determined. Yeah, I guess this is worldview dependent. There could be some distinctions when speaking about predestination and determinism. But yeah, I don't know, like what I shouldn't be using it on. I guess he would have to clarify, like on what do you don't want me to use determined or predestined. I don't know what he's referring to. So I'm so sorry, Joel, but I would need more context in order to answer your question more thoroughly, because there may be some cases in which I would use not one and not the other. I would agree with you. There's going to be some cases where it could be interchangeable, and it would also be fine. So I would need more context for answering this question more thoroughly.
Thank you, gentlemen, for those responses. Okay, next one comes in from Caleb Garza for Israel. How do you reconcile Jesus being like us in every way with the doctrine of original sin? Was it every way or not?
Ooh. Yeah, that's an awesome question. That's a very important, great question. So it is in every way, because we're not talking about the outcome of the choices. Like, all humans have a different outcome of choices. We're talking about the process, or we're talking about the what generates choices, the system of choices, like how a choice comes about from a person's worldview. And as I've been arguing, it's from influences, from our previous beliefs, from previous propositions, from everything that's within our nature, not just our body, but also from our soul, because we have different beliefs out there. So, for example, if Adam was sinless in the garden, and he got to a point where there was Satan coming and bringing another false premise. Now, he didn't have knowledge of how to refute this thing, because that's how he gained knowledge, by sinning. He didn't have knowledge of how to refute Satan's premise. So I guess when that premise is processed by the previous beliefs, that it can also lead to whatever choices come from the union of those premises with the new upcoming premise.
Yeah, we're talking about this somewhere. If Jesus is like us in every way, it probably was in this discussion. What about original sin? And so what are you taking from Israel's answer? You're muted.
I was going to say he's just equivocating, because earlier he's like, Jesus is like us in every way, well, except those ways. You're equivocating, dude. You're equivocating.
And also, it's the same system of choice for now those that have a total depravity, now those that are sinful, now those that have a original sin. Now they choose also the same way. They choose because they have a sinful nature, and it is from those beliefs, from those influences, from those reasons that they choose. So Adam chooses from reasons, we choose from reasons, Jesus chooses from reasons, and the reasons are dependent on what propositions are within each person's soul. So it is the same system. I don't have to argue. It's the same outcome, just the same system, and that represents humanity in every way.
Thank you very much, Drew. The floor is yours. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is a fantastic question. I think it significantly undermines one of Israel's main arguments, being that if Jesus is like us in every way, then if his will was determined, then our will was determined. And by, I think, what is it, like And if he's like in every way, then he must also ontologically be like us in every way, which then you're going to run into the problem with original sin, that Jesus had original sin, because if not, you're making a special pleading for, well, Jesus.
Was that Israel's argument? I must have missed that. His argument was like, if Jesus is like humans in every way, and Jesus's will was determined, then our will is determined.
Yes, that was one of his arguments.
That was his argument?
You missed it. It was in really fine print, and he talked really fast, but it was there.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Oh, Israel.
See, Israel believes God is determined. You're going to see this in a minute. Man. Israel believes God is determined. He doesn't believe in a free God.
This was like us in every way in his will, but not in his human nature and so on. His human will was like ours, but his human nature was not like ours. And so this is just going to create significant problems for Israel's argument. And so was it every way or not? I mean, Israel's going to say, well, no, it wasn't in every way. It was just in this particular way with his will and not with his nature, and his ontology was not like us.
Okay, I'll respond. What's funny is that in the debate, he granted those 1 through 5 premises, and this premise too is one of the ones he granted. So that's just really odd.
Hey, it's really odd that he disagreed. He granted my very complicated premises without fully understanding what I was saying. Israel.
And again, he's confusing in every way. For example, like he's confusing the logos, but no, we're talking about the incarnation here. The incarnation, that we're talking about the soul, the human nature. So the human nature is the same in every way as every other human. So if this is biblical language. So just go to Hebrews 2:17, and you're gonna see that it's in every way. And we're talking about not outcomes. Again, he's getting confused about outcomes.
Okay, did I miss? Did he say that Jesus was born with original sin? Did I miss it?
No, it's just special pleading.
So his answer is no.
Yeah, his answer is no, because he's special pleading.
Oh man.
Outcomes. I'm not talking about outcomes. That you got confused on that. I'm talking here about the system of choice. We choose based on reasons. We choose based on the premises that we believe on, based on our nature. Like
I didn't determine
having
souls.
souls. We choose based on results. And again, you also mentioned premise 4 that it is necessarily aligned with the father. Heretic and denying impeccability and denying some of the different councils. So again, I mean, are you gonna now after you agreed, are you not gonna say that you don't agree and become a heretic? It's up to you, man. I'll also leave that to you.
What was that? Like, you're not going to agree? If you don't agree, then you're a heretic. Like what? Yeah.
Israel is affirming, guys, a formally condemned heresy, and he's defending it. Just please understand, Israel is affirming a named, formally condemned heresy and saying, if you don't affirm this, you're a heretic.
The Council of Orange, wasn't that the one that condemned Calvinism?
No, well, Council of Orange condemned double predestination, which Izzy is arguing for in this because God determined everything. So determinism entails double predestination, which was condemned at the Council of Orange. But it didn't name Calvinism specifically by name then, because Calvinism hadn't been formally introduced. That was named at the Synod of Jerusalem in like 1642 or 1672. It was formally named along with Lutheranism as a heresy, and a damnable heresy that attacks the church. And so Israel's defending a named heresy and saying, if you disagree with him, you're a heretic.
and he's using it in like this way where it's like, you need to say these things or else you're a heretic. So
he's doing exactly what the Synod of Jerusalem criticized Calvinists for doing. They take the language of the church, they take the dressing, the furniture of Christianity, and they reinterpret it and weaponize it to attack her. That's what Izzy is doing here. And he's saying, if you don't get with me, a formally condemned heretic or adherent of heresy, then you're a heretic. And he's attacking the truth here that's standing up to this heresy.
It really doesn't look good. It's not a good debate strategy.
No.
Don't
appeal to orthodoxy if you're a Calvinist. You can appeal to Reformed tradition, Reformed confessions, but don't appeal to Christian orthodoxy if you're a Calvinist. Like,
if you're in a debate, don't appeal to weird councils that no one's ever heard of, and then just try to condemn your opponent as a heretic. Nobody's going to be following those arguments.
Like they have the Council of Reeds in like Marvel, where Reed Richard. I'm going to start referring to it as the Council of Warrens, and I'm just going to like start naming my own views. When they start bringing up random, like, well, the Council of Warren, I'll be like, well, the Council of Warrens said you're a formal heretic.
It's not a bad idea because there's so many councils making so many decisions. They're not going to know that it's fake.
The Council of Warrens. Yeah, that was in the year of our Lord 25.
25 is too early. They'll call that out.
Yeah.
2025.
Here we go.
Oh man, you muted me.
For Israel. Who authored God's decree of all things, including evil? Doesn't your view entail God is the author of evil?
This is a very commonly used question by Soteriology 101, and I think it's utterly terrible. Again, so here's an argument, Warren.
Okay, so I'll ask Calvinists. I'll say, so you say God's not the author of evil? They'll be like, yeah. What does author mean in that sentence? And they'll just like have a freak out. They won't know how to define author in such a way that they don't think that God's the author of sin.
Well, God isn't an author. It's more like he wrote a book. He authored a book that involved all sin. So God is more like an author of sin, but he didn't author sin.
They use the book analogy. It's crazy to me. It's like God's not the author of sin. It's like a book author.
He invented it in eternity past. It's always been part of him. It's an attribute he expresses into creation.
Oh, I'm dying.
Yeah.
Pay very close attention because I'm going to show you next after this because we have a debate upcoming. Okay, so when it comes to evil, how is evil defined by the Bible? It's transgression of the law. Who's the law for? There's many categories. There's laws for Gentiles. There's laws for women. There's laws for bosses. There's laws for servants. There's laws for foreigners. There's laws for kings, and all of those. There's different categories of law. So when we're talking about evil, we're talking about transgression of the law. So again, so you're always assuming that there's some human law that applies to some specific category because laws apply differently to different persons. So again, if let's say a king does action X, let's say throwing an arrow to there's two armies. When the king throws an arrow, it will be okay for him to start a war because he was elected democratically to do that. But the same action X, if a non-king does it, someone that should have.
Are you following this argument?
No.
Okay.
No.
I just checking. I'm not following the argument either.
Be starting a war because he's not the king. He's going to be starting a war without the approval of the rest of the army. So it will be immoral. It will be the same action. But it will be immoral for one person and not moral for another person. So again, what is your standard? What is evil? Again,
he's saying, instead of answering the question, Chris, hold up. Instead of answering the question, instead of saying, yes, I believe God authored all evil, or no, God did not author all evil, he's saying God has morally sufficient reasons to author all evil. That's what he's arguing.
Okay, yeah, okay. That makes more sense what's happening because I'm like, this doesn't seem to be responsive to the question.
Show you how human law, you don't find anything to say God is evil in those accounts. So it is a logical exclusive category of humans and those that the law applies to, and you cannot show me where it applies to God. Okay, and another one is to when God reveals his character. So for example, where he says that he's not a liar, that he would like to like a human, and that will make him immoral. So when he reveals moral stuff about himself, but the thing is, not only we never find him revealing himself that if I were to have determinism or determine the action of another person, then it will be immoral. No, we never see that, and not only that, we see the total opposite. Warren, pay attention. We see the total opposite. We see him taking credit of the human choices of different people, like the Joseph and his brothers, like also David's sons on Absalom and the other brother that died, and also the baby. So and that's just how we see counterfactual language all throughout the Bible. Like God loves taking credit of human choices, and it's everywhere. So it's just so funny. You don't have a standard, Warren, and you're going to be beaten next in debate.
You don't have a standard, Warren. You're going to be defeated in the debate, just like Israel's dominating this debate.
Yeah, we're all scared of Israel.
Yeah. God takes credit for human actions. God whistles to bring the Assyrians to punish Israel. Yeah, God does things, but it doesn't mean determinism. And sometimes people fail God's expectations, and the whole Bible is a story of God's failed expectations toward Israel. What more could I have done to get you to do the things I wanted you to do? Now I'm going to punish you because you guys didn't do the things I thought you're going to do. This is the story of the Bible. And so God can do things to get people to do things that they want. But yeah, God is not the author of sin. He's not predestining eternity. He's for some divine script to play out in real time without any real actors in the show. That's not I don't think that's what's happening.
Accept it. So yeah, I'll see you in my inbox, and I'm going to destroy you, Warren.
Okay, thank you for the response.
He said he's going to destroy me.
What was that? What did you hear that?
I'm going to destroy you, Warren. I'm going to destroy you.
Warren, listen, Warren.
No,
you're going to be. I'm going to destroy you.
At the end of if I ever debated Israel, at the end of it, he would be like, "You sunk my battleship."
Warren, I'm going to destroy you, Warren.
I'm not the greatest debater in the whole world, but Israel, like I said earlier, in a room where you're all alone, you're not in the top 10, bro.
And so, okay. When he's debating here, he has all these he intuitively knows, like, you're watching, and he intuitively knows the things that you're going to say and how you're going to respond.
He's omniscient.
And he's played out this weird scenario in his mind where he's won the debate already, and he thinks by like communicating his his fantasies of how the real world would work out, like the audience is going to be like, oh yeah, we identify with your hallucinations, we identify with your fantasies, and we too think you could destroy Warren in a debate.
He's the barking chihuahua marking every tree in the yard because grandma's Doberman just went inside. That's what he's doing.
It doesn't look good. He's
just marking every tree. This is my territory. Mine. This is my home. Mine. He's just marking his territory.
Perceptively, it doesn't look good to the audience.
It's fun. There's some battle words right there for Warren McGrew and you, Israel. Should be an epic showdown. So appreciate the teaser there.
Dottie's just throwing him a bone. Like, yeah, there's some battle word. What's happening here?
Donnie has seen the multiple times Israel has challenged me to a debate, and I go, "Hey, Donnie, Israel's now wanting to debate me again. Will you set this up?" And Israel's like, "Eat dirt, Warren. I'm not debating you." Blah, 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 blah. Like, Donnie is a witness to this. Like, and here Israel's like, "I'm a big tough guy. I can take Warren McGrew."
What is happening here? Israel.
No, Donnie's witness. I mean, probably I think 4 or 5 times at least. Hey, it looks like Israel wants to debate me again, and then he runs from it.
Okay, so like when you're young, I don't know how old he is. He might be like 32 or somewhere around there.
He's
it's like
a kid. Yeah, he's got to be at least in his 30s, hopefully.
Like you have these weird perceptions of reality, and they just don't translate to the real world. It's like people are not perceiving you in a positive light when you do these things.
I agree with Ditmar.
Where's Ditmar? Did I miss Ditmar?
See, no, over on the live stream side chat.
Yeah, he's filibustering.
He says, this dude is insufferable.
It doesn't look good. Israel, you don't look like a normal person. You don't look like Drew. Like you watch Drew, like, yeah, I can have a beer with that guy.
He's smiling right now. Look at Drew. He's got a little smirk on him. He's like, yeah, okay, thanks, Israel. Like,
I could go out and hang out with Drew. We could have a beer. Like, I don't feel like Israel would be like the guy you want to go hang out with, like shoot pool with or something. I don't shoot pool, but like it doesn't feel like that guy.
Drew,
beat down.
Drew, the floor is yours. Go ahead. Oh, I think you might be on mute. Let me see if it's my end. I think it's
muted. No, he's muted.
My bad. So God loves taking credit for human choices. And one of the choices that Israel highlighted there was with David's sons and committing adultery. And as a determinist, he believes that all human choices were predetermined. And so does God love taking credit for all human choices? I don't think so. 1 John 5:19 says that the pride of life, the lust of the eyes, does not come from God, but comes from the world. Doesn't sound like he would want to take credit for those things. As I said in my opener, the Westminster Confession, and many Calvinists wrestle with this. They make this statement, this absolute statement: God has predestined everything, ordained everything, decreed everything, yet so as not to be the author of evil, because people see that as a logical following on process, and they just kind of deny it and assert it without much.
Prudence says, looks as bad as Andrew Wilson did against Ayala on whatever.
He debated Slick's daughter.
Yeah, I can't escape this internet prostitute. My entire Twitter timeline always I can't. Maybe I need to put her name on mute and not ever see her name again. It's just insufferable. Like the amount of wickedness. It's did Andrew Wilson fail against her in a debate? I don't want to watch the debate. It sounds insufferable. It sounds terrible. Don't. It says, please link that debate. Don't link that debate. Don't do it.
No, I've got it pulled up. I'm going to do a review. Over on Idol Killer.
It's a trap. We don't do it. It's so gross. She's so gross.
Much argument. We've not seen any argument tonight for God that's not implicating God as author of evil. What we heard.
If my daughter turned into her, I'd probably have to commit public seppuku, like that Japanese thing where you carve like a square in your stomach.
Dude, he's asking my second question tonight. Oh. Thank you, Donnie.
Oh, good. We'll go back to that. No more of this internet prostitute stuff.
Heard now is basically divine voluntarism, that whatever God wills, God has written the law, so he can't break his own law, and he can just will things, and he takes credit for these human choices that he wills, which is all of them.
All right, so my response, I think Drew is so horrible at representing other people's views. So I guess he was ignorant of the passage I was referring to, because of David's sin, God said that he was going to take the life of his son. So I'm talking about how God took the life of his sons. He took the life of Absalom. Also, Absalom killed one of his brothers, also the David's baby, and I forgot.
Future debate apparently between Israel and Warren. Let's get his follow up in here and give you the opportunity, Israel, to respond. And so he says, doesn't your view entail evil to be an eternal attribute God expresses into his creation to reflect him?
It would be a good question if I hadn't answered it. Actually, in the last question that I don't tell the Warmer Group already asked, I had already answered it. So again, when it comes to how do you argue that God is evil? So I'm saying, so doing the same action X, again, I give the example of the guy shooting an arrow, that he's not a king, and the king shooting an arrow. So it's the same action. Shooting an arrow is the same action, but it is moral for one person and not moral for the other. It is moral for the king to do so. It is not moral for the other person to do so. So again, so when it comes to actions, I guess it depends on moral categories. And I'll repeat the same.
Okay, so basically the argument is I own a car. It's okay for me to take a sledgehammer and bust that car to pieces because I own the car. And so, but if Warren came over to my house and he decided to smash my car to pieces with the sledgehammer, that's my car. He's violating my property rights. And so, situationally, based on the subject, it's moral for me to do because it's fine. It's just my own property. And it's immoral for Warren because he's violating that. So in the same way, he's saying that categorically, God can't be doing evil because the same situation applies. Just categorically, the evil label just does not apply to God. So like God could rape little children.
That's the example I gave him.
Yeah, it's not evil because God's the one doing it. Okay, I don't buy your analogy. I
think that was a divine command theory is essentially what he's appealing to here.
Right. God can do no evil because by definition, everything God does is not evil. I don't buy it. It's like, no one's going to buy that argument.
Same answer that I told you before, Warren. So there's laws for women that are not for men. There's laws for Gentiles that are not for Jews. There's laws for kings that are not for the governed. There's laws for priests that are not for laymen. Laws for Levi.
Yes, laws are situational and based on the subject. That doesn't mean molesting children is subject based.
They're not for the rest of the tribes. Laws for foreigners that are not for locals. Laws for X, Y, and Z. So there's for humans that are not for animals. Whatever. So I guess it could be a same action. It could be let's say a bull killing someone or a cop killing someone. So one could be murder. One could be negligent.
Okay, so Will Duffy had a debate with Matt Slick on does Calvinism make God evil? And Matt Slick, our whole argument was like, by definition, God can't do anything evil because even if the acts he does, we would normally categorize as evil because God's the one doing those acts. They're not evil. And it's fantastic if the Calvinist wants to take that argument because normal people are not going to resonate with that argument. And then they're going to see Calvinism is just justifying whatever horrendous thing that they're doing. But it's not a good argument. And I don't think it holds.
One can be moral. One could be moral negligence, murder. So it depends on who does it. So again, it is based on logical categories. So when we're talking about God, it wouldn't be evil in him being the reference. So again, I'll use the example of the school. So again, see, if a father determines a kid to go to school, this kid goes to school. He determines them. He coerces them, even, let's say, to go to school, and the kid just so happened to be bullied, or he bullies someone else. He caused it, and I guess. It doesn't mean that just because the father caused it, he's not in the logical category, at least not in colloquial language, because you don't have a courtness. If it was an objective argument, you don't have a courtness. If we ask anyone, we wouldn't say that the father is evil for determining the kid to go to school. But if we see the kid that bullied or got bullied, we would say that he's evil. So again, you're confusing logical categories. It depends. So if an action, I guess, it determines it, and
Warren, you're confusing logical categories. Why would you do that, Warren?
I know. I'm not assuming Israel's metaphysical grid, so therefore I'm obviously in error.
Okay, so I'm looking at the other questions. One of the other questions is Lucas saying, a relationship with God under determinism seems to me like marrying a woman and telling her I will be the one determining everything she thinks. Is that a relationship? Like, does a relationship involve determinism? And Lucas, that good individual pay $10 to ask the question. Irresistible Truth says, Acts 2:23 says Jesus was delivered up by the definite plan and foreknowledge of God. How do you recognize this or reconcile this with the idea that the future is undetermined without special pleading? Without special pleading. And yeah, so God,
he's still going on. He's still going on with my question here about.
I know, but what is he saying? He's saying that he's justifying that God can just do anything without moral.
Oh yeah, no, like people are calling him an atheist in the side chat. They're saying that he's even contradicted classical theism.
Okay, we'll go back to the live section. I just wanted to see what questions we missed.
I guess it'll be the same as murder because he's comparing making it analogous. If you think of murder, I guess you have that evil, so I guess you're a murderer. He's gonna send himself to jail if he were consistent.
Cecil says, "Stupid analogy."
Say himself to be the good actor in the story. If he were consistent, he will send himself to jail. Again, I don't have your assumptions. We're running under my assumptions, and because it's an internal critique of my view. And in my view, if it would be morally analogous for you to imagine something as forgot to imagine something. I guess so you would send yourself to jail if you were consistent. Some of the other points that I guess he didn't pay attention on the nature that if something
he didn't pay attention. These little jabs, they feel so petty.
It's a separate question. He's treating them as synonymous. And so the first question was what? What was the first question? Don't you believe God decreed all evil? Or something with the author analogy. And now I'm saying, isn't this an attribute of God? It's a separate question. And in both cases, he says, yes, God authored evil, but he's not morally responsible for it. And in this case, he's saying, yes, evil is an eternal attribute from our perspective, but we don't ascribe evil to God because it's not evil when he does it. So it's just more of him falling on the sword. But there was a reason why I asked this as a follow-up question, because one is what God does. The other one is what God is. And he said God is evil and does evil, but we shouldn't call him evil. That's essentially the argument.
Israel, what are you doing, Israel? Oh man,
he's on the path of Vela 2.0 so hard right now. He's gonna wake up one morning. He's gonna realize that the Bible teaches a dynamic living God. He's so exalted as Platonist and Antichrist metaphysics that when he sees it, he's gonna call the God of the Bible pagan and a Zeus, and he's gonna run off with Tyler Vela into classical theist Platonist land and being a non-believing theist.
All right,
we'll
bookmark this prediction. I tend to try not to make these types of predictions, but we'll bookmark it and we'll see if it happens.
I'm not omniscient. I don't know the future. I'm saying that's where he's headed. But as a dynamic guy, I think he can adjust course, right?
Yep.
So I offer a rebuke, not because I'm saying that will happen, but I'm saying that's where it looks like it's headed.
Determinate, therefore it's evil in God's nature. Again, he didn't pay attention to reference. I gave him
to elaborate on the debate itself. Gentlemen, let's get some quick final words, final thoughts. Thank you to the both of you for doing this. Israel, let's start with you. Again, thanks for your time. And let's wrap it up with some quick final words, final thoughts.
I feel Donnie, he's tracking how the trajectory of this debate's going. And he's like, oh man, this is terrible. That's what his demeanor feels like.
People in the side chat are saying, don't ever let Israel debate on here again. Just so you see that.
I did not see that.
Yes. Not on our channel, not the channel we're on, but on the live stream of the debate itself on Standing for Truth. People are like, just don't have this guy back on. It's not good.
I guess if I say one...
Dude, does Israel talk like this in real life? 5-minute responses to a question. Yes, he does. I warned him. I prepped. I was being a nice guy. I prepped Israel for the debate. I said, don't be doing this. Don't be doing these complicated arguments that no one's going to follow. And then he did them anyways. Maybe he listened to me. He culled down his 23 premise argument to a 7 premise argument. Maybe he did, but that's not good enough.
Positive thing about Drew is that he didn't appeal to heresy. He would rather just affirm the premises. So I guess I'll give him props for that.
Oh no. Oh, so again, in his mind, he's like, I'm trying to link Drew to heresy, so I'm actively tracking this. So I need to verbally indicate to the audience that I'm linking him to heresy and defeat. I'm the arbiter of what is heresy and what's not, and so I'm the expert.
I think he's the standard. I think he's certainly a standard for what is heretical.
Well, yeah, and that's what he's trying to tell the audience here. It doesn't look good though.
Because I was going to call him a false teacher and blast him for
I was going to do all these things, but they didn't materialize. Don't be mentioning it. Israel, what are you doing?
I could have taken him. I could have taken him if I didn't have this cold, and he did what I wanted him to. I could have been a contender.
I was going to put him on blast for his heresies. I had it all set up. Just trust me, folks. It would have been glorious, but he didn't do it, and so good on him. And so I'll allow him into the fold. Israel, what is happening?
For being heretical, so I guess I'll give him that. But yeah, I think he was a bit dishonest throughout the debate, as he would agree to a premise and then say he doesn't agree later on. So it's kind of like he would shift on and on from responses. Yeah. Anyway, so in the debate we went over 5 premises that he granted. He granted the argument in defense of premise 5, the first argument, the inductive argument, and also the abductive argument. So there's no way that he could have won this debate if he granted 5 premises in a logically valid.
Look at the guy in that comment. People stop platforming Israel. Oh man,
that's Mind Warden. Smart person there.
Argument. As for my viewers, I want to thank the people that helped me with preparation. Dr. Ryan Mullins.
Comments: nonstop jabs and insult and snark from Israel. Just small, petty little person. Oh.
I want to also thank Dr. Christopher Clues, also Dr. Taylor Sir, who answered a question for me, and he's
no, Warren, you just wrote Izzy makes Matt Slick look civil. That's hyperbole. That's not true.
It's metaphor. It's metaphor. It's not anthropomorphism.
It's hyperbole.
It's hyperbole.
It's maybe one of the leading scholars on free will literature. I want to thank Travis Worth also for helping me with the sparring session, and I guess Greg the Fake. I'm sorry, Greg Bronson, something like that.
John K is about to join us and watch it.
Yeah,
shout out when he gets here.
Yeah, Drew better be thanking me in the like Israel's thinking like everyone who helped him to prep for this debate, they all failed him. Every single one of those people should be like very ashamed of being named here. This is embarrassing.
Colton in the side chat on that live stream was like, I was telling him this isn't going to work. Don't do it. This isn't going to work. I was against it. But Izzy's like, everybody endorsed me. I'm the greatest guy ever. Everybody thinks I'm biblical.
Colton's a smart guy. He's like actually intelligent.
Yes. I like Colton. I can't disagree with him enough, but for whatever reason, as a human being, I like Colton.
I haven't had too much I don't know if I've ever had any. A lot of times I don't know who I'm interacting with. I'll interact with people as if everyone's generic. But Colton, when I review his discussions, he seems intelligent and a smart guy. And if he called this debate from the get-go, that makes him even more intelligent. Oh, Israel.
He also helped me, and also those guys. So lots of people that helped me to spar. I had like 15 spars. Also the scholars. Thank you.
15 spars. 15 people failed you.
This is what he came up with.
15 people. You ran this through 15 people. These people all should be fired. Their degrees should be pulled back by the university, revoked, like Kanye art degree.
I think this is one of those like, yeah, buddy, okay. I think those are the kind of responses that he probably got in messages. He's like, what do you think of my premises? And they're like, yeah, okay. And he's like, they endorsed me.
So
I don't think he's getting a lot of actual endorsements of his propositions.
Right. It feels like what he's doing here is doing like a name dropping thing to try to say, hey, all these famous, important people also agreed with me, and they validate. It's like a group consensus type of argument that he's laying out in an indirect manner for the audience to say, hey, if these smart people all said this is a great argument, then it's a great argument. But it just doesn't resonate. I don't think it's working for the audience.
Thank you for helping me get a valid, sound argument.
I would love to have like a reasonable
Dr. Christopher Clues, a PhD.
I would love to have a reasonable and articulate Calvinist as a foil, just to see what that's like for a change. You know, like somebody that's articulate, kind, well-reasoned, loves Christ more than Calvin, but is like convinced that their position is biblical, and they can come at it like a brother and go like, hey, I think this is biblical. Let's talk about it.
So thank you, Drew.
You know, in a debate forum. That would be, I think, groundbreaking.
It would be. Yeah, let me know if you find that individual.
I'm just putting the word out there. Like, just if you guys know anybody that's like that hasn't escaped Calvinism yet, but still loves the Lord, like
there's good Calvinists out there, but they're not the online Calvinists.
No, I'm not talking about all Calvinists. I'm talking about in the online space. That's what I mean. Yeah.
So you're trying to find a specifically online Calvinist who argues in good faith. That's gonna be very hard.
I think Jason's right.
He's using his closing to like thank a bunch of people.
Yeah, I will
inevitably
do whatever God
Did he drink from the Monster Energy can and thank his sponsors?
Oh,
this
Israel
debate was sponsored by Monster Energy and Calvinism.
I did what I could. I tried to warn you, friend.
Warren McGrew, Chris Fisher, Chris Stockman.
Oh no, what is he? He's thanking us. Don't thank us, Warren.
And others. I mean, there have been a number of thanks for all those that have prayed. I really appreciate it. It was said earlier tonight. Well, first, I want to say this. I didn't define this earlier, but the Gish Gallop is a rhetorical technique in which a person in a
So I think Drew is thanking people because he heard Israel thanking people. Maybe it's a good thing to do. I don't know, but it's not like I feel gratification from being thanked personally. I'd rather you just stick to the debate points and then press those rather than use your time to put out thanks or anything like that. That's what I would prefer personally. But
or you could come in and say, look, I guess I'll use my time to thank some people because Israel refused to allow a rebuttal in this debate. So I'll use that time to thank a few people instead. Like that might have been a fun way of getting a jab in while you're also thanking some people.
Yeah, I feel like Drew felt compelled to add that. I don't think it was originally a part of his. Don't thank people at the conclusion of your debate. Thank them afterwards or
at the after party. Israel, where's Drew? Drew needs to join in.
Is it over?
Yeah,
it's over. Maybe he'll pop in.
He should be popping in here any minute now.
Presenting an excessive number of arguments with no regard for their accuracy or strength, with a rapidity that makes it impossible for the opponent to address them in the time available. Gish galloping prioritizes the quantity of the gallop.
Edward says he should thank Israel.
Yes, I'd like to thank Israel tonight.
Israel, thank you for an easy layup. This was fantastic. You couldn't have done a better job for advocating for my position.
Arguments at the expense of their quality.
Yeah, I'll be right back.
I really wish that Brother Israel had chosen one or two really solid, just clear arguments. He recently told me that I was gish galloping in a response to him. So it's interesting that I've encountered this here today. And a statement was made throughout the debate, that there's no place to hide in academia, but I'm not interested in hiding in academia. I want to hide and take my solace and refuge in the Word of God, in the Bible. And unfortunately, I don't feel like we really got to talk about the explicit biblical data allegedly in favor of determinism tonight, but I did have fun. It was I enjoyed the prep. I enjoyed the debate. Thanks for everybody for tuning in. And shameless plug, you got to go over to Provisionist Perspective and scroll through and find a video that looks interesting to you and watch it and leave me a comment and let me know how I did in the debate. Good, bad, ugly. I don't care. I appreciate it all. So thank you. And thank you, Lord.
Okay, Drew, thank you for the final words, final thoughts. Again,
oh man, we'll see. I sent him a link to the live stream, and we'll maybe I'll send him multiple links. Maybe he'll pop on. And where are you, Drew? But I'm dying just a little bit inside. Okay, so this debate, I felt like it was going to go bad for Israel, but I didn't think it was going to go this bad for Israel. Israel just was very obtuse to how people think and function. He thought he could try to wow and pizzazz people into agreeing with him. He thought that he could portray himself as some sort of material expert on the issues and talk knowledgeably and come off as the expertise and the person that everyone should favor. It just, it just didn't materialize in the debate like that. He didn't look like he was the professional. He looked very petty. He looked a little bit ridiculous. His arguments were convoluted, and Drew's arguments were a little bit more accessible. Drew was able to point to my advice to Drew was like, put a bunch of points, but focus on a few, but make sure that there's a huge scattering of these points so that people can understand the dearth of information and the dearth of points that are available for your position. He did that a little bit, but maybe not to the extent that I would have liked. But it was a lot more than what Israel is doing. He's putting all his eggs in one basket. I'll follow my complicated premises to my conclusion, and determinism is true.
That's the worst way to argue a debate. The easiest way is to come in and go, hey, I've got 2 or 3 little bullets that are really easy for me to defend and to articulate, and I'm going to drive home all throughout this debate. Did he address 1? No. Did he address 2? No. Did he address 3? No. Therefore, I win. Like, really simple, really clean, and all throughout the debate, keep addressing those 2 or 3 points. Drew, look, determinism, absolute claim. He has to prove everything. I just have to show 1. He hasn't been able to do that. That's a very simple defensive position. But Israel makes this convoluted, fine print, multi-slide, countless premise, and it's like, if I was expecting Israel to, I was expecting Drew to affirm Nestorianism on premise 19, paragraph C, subsection 39, and he didn't do that. So I'll give him credit for that. And it's like, that's not a good debate strategy. It's not a good way to come across in a debate. It's not enjoyable, other than just to see you throw the debate for somebody that we're rooting for. Like Israel lost the debate. Drew did good, not taking anything away from Drew, but Israel, like, Drew could have just sat there quiet. Like, we should do a re-edit of this where we just remove Drew. And we're like, Israel lost the debate because of the following reasons. And we just re-upload it and it's nothing but Israel talking. Like, that's how bad Israel threw it.
It was really bad. It's like, I don't think the audience could empathize and follow Israel's arguments. Even in the cross-examination was very brutal, and Israel's not answering the questions directly. And like one of the commenters, like, he's given like a 5-minute answer to like the simple question. Like, you shouldn't have 5-minute answers. It doesn't look like you know what you're talking about if your answer has to be 5 minutes to a simple question. Like, it can't be something simple.
Well, you see, determinism is true because Christ said, not my will, but your will be done. Therefore, he had no will. It's like, can you walk us through that? Answer my question. You didn't ask me a question yet. What? It's my turn to talk. I'm taking my time back. Moderator,
make him
inconceivable. Moderator,
please make him answer the question. Moderator,
it's like,
moderator.
What are you doing?
Moderator, did you know that these people who I just named, they agree with me? These people.
If you abided by the agreement that we set forth before this debate ever began, then you would know that I won this debate before it ever began. And you should moderate exactly how I want you to moderate. And you're not doing that. I just want to draw your attention to that.
All my terms and conditions, you read them, right? I won the debate.
I think when Drew signed that, part of the terms and conditions was that Israel gets to declare victory in every debate he ever has with Drew forward. So, like, this way he can say he's beaten Drew in every debate they'll ever have. It's kind of like that kind of gotcha language. It's like, that must be what's going on there.
Oh, I'm dying. So Drew has not. It doesn't.
No, I messaged the guy.
Yeah. What is happening here?
What are you doing, man?
What he is shirking his duties to us.
He messaged me and he's essentially asking me how I think he did, and I was like, get on Chris's stream. And
yeah,
I don't see him anywhere.
We were basically on par for the number of viewers of the actual debate. This channel, just by ourselves. And so that's kind of funny to me. But yeah, he should jump on if he wants to talk about his post debate. It doesn't Facebook usually like shows like their little picture, like when they saw your message, but I'm not seeing it. Maybe he went to take a nap afterwards. He wants
he's in like a different time zone or something. So you know what it probably is. Let's give him a break. I mean, I had to go take a slight intermission break myself. So maybe that's what he's doing right now.
And so Prudence says he wants a break, probably. Yeah, maybe. See, he's not as on the spectrum as Warren and I.
Right. That's right.
Yeah. So I guess we'll cut there. But my perceptions of the debate is Israel, even if he has good arguments, what do we got here?
What do we have?
What is this? We're just closing up, and then we decided to bring you on with your fake background, with your fake
bro living in the Brady Bunch house. What are you doing over there?
I was in charge of tidying the lounge tonight. I just am in charge of doing that, and then obviously I didn't have a chance to do that because I was doing the debate. So I'm out here tidying, and I saw the messages. I was listening to you guys live just talk about some of the stuff there, and I thought, wait a second, I can join that link. And then I saw that you had messaged me, Warren, so I thought I would jump on.
I was like, where are you, man? Get on here.
I don't know what I expected.
You didn't expect a guy constantly appealing to the moderator. Answer my question.
I did expect that. I mean, I did. And I remember saying that to you guys, that I thought that the arguments were going to be really, really difficult to understand. But I thought that I was genuinely going to be able to predict and understand them because they've been made before. But he formulated all of these brand new arguments and apparently had them tested against PhDs and all this other stuff, like 3 or 4 different new arguments. And I was like, man, what is going on? Like, I don't even know where to begin. It was ironic.
Who are these PhDs? Someone's needs to pull their degree.
They don't have a PhD in formal moderated debate. They don't have a.
You need to message Ryan Mullins and be like, listen, if you approved this,
there's no way. Did he mention Ryan?
Yeah.
Ryan, if you approve this for a debate,
that's the funniest thing ever.
That's a full-time ban from the show. But
no. It's hilarious.
That's so bad.
It's like, yeah, go for that. That sounds great. Make that debate argument.
Yeah, that's probably what it was. It's like, like Drew needs to send Ryan a basket of flowers and thank him for approving that. Is what he needs to do. Maybe like a fruit basket.
I ran it against all these people, and not one of them told you this is a terrible, terrible idea.
Well, I asked all the provisionists.
all your people. You should never ask them for advice again in the future. Never ask them.
It's ironic too. It's so ironic. Always project, right? We talk about this. And one of the things that he accused us of in our response to Chris Date's episode was gish galloping him. And if that what he just gave was not a gish gallop, freaking give me a break. Like, that was just next level. Like, and one of the words he used, like, accuse it starts with an A. Man, I don't even know, man. I was just like, what are you talking about?
I agree with Johnny F. Send Ryan Mullins a bottle of scotch and a bottle of black fingernail polish as a thank you, and just be like, dude, that was so good. Moderator, he's not answering my questions. Donnie's like, did you finish asking the question? Like, so Drew, what's your favorite color? Wrong.
Yeah, it was
he was cutting you off, man.
He just wanted me to give yes or no questions, and like that, I don't. He would say, like, with the reasons thing, right? Like, oh, you don't have any reasons. You don't have any. We have reasons. We just don't believe that they cause the choice. Like, what is so difficult to understand about that? And he's like, ha, you don't believe in reasons and influences. And I'm like,
so what you do is you say, look, like, right now I'm defending a non-fatalistic, non-deterministic view. That's an influence on you. So does that cause you to accept it?
Right.
And he'll be like, well, no, because influences aren't causal. And you're like, aha.
Well, I mean, I can concede that an influence is a cause. It just
Okay, so
it ceases. Go ahead.
They're using language in a different way than you are. And so when they say that Christ's will necessarily aligns with the Father, you think, oh, yeah, of course it necessarily. But they mean necessarily as in fatalistically aligns with the Father. And when they use words like, what are we just talking about? They're using language differently. And so when you affirm their priors without these clarifications, they think that you're agreeing with these weird presuppositions that's just not embedded in the language.
Right. And I knew that he was meaning like metaphysical necessity when they said that, but I wanted to press on his loose language of aligns, because I just felt like that was really aligns. Okay, what does that mean? Like Jesus can do lots of things that align with God's will. That doesn't necessarily mean that he has only one choice in front of him, and he still is in alignment. It's ironic because they often talk about how, I saw Calvinists in the chat saying beforehand, like, next time it should be about, is incompatibilism true and is libertarianism biblical and stuff like that. And so the burden of proof being on us, da, da, da. And he made the whole debate about like libertarianism is false. And I'm like, that's not what this is about. Like, you need to actually demonstrate that determinism is biblical. Like,
so did he make the whole debate about that? Was anyone able to follow what he made the debate about? That's my question.
Well, I said this, and I think it was in my conclusion, maybe, where the conclusion of one of his arguments was that libertarian free will is questionable or something like that. And I was like, okay, well, it's questionable. Well, let's even say that it's false. That doesn't mean determinism is biblical. You could be a hard determinist and not be a Christian, and it's still not biblical. Like, he just came to a yeah, I'm glad you found out you're not a heretic.
So GMW says, Drew, glad you found out you're not a heretic. I was trying to click a different thing. He says it just disappeared.
He holds up your whiteboard and he's like, I was expecting Drew to affirm all these heresies. So I got to give him props. I was only able to catch him on one of these 15.
Well, and I knew that he was going to do that. I knew he was going to try to press me into corner on heresies rather than prove his debate thesis, which was and as you guys saw and know, and hopefully I pointed this out to the viewers, like he didn't want to do a rebuttal, so I could never respond directly to what he was saying, except for there at the end where I had the conclusion and then the kind of the extra conclusion.
And when people in the side chat were like, Israel didn't want a rebuttal, like, oh, that's bad. That's bad.
Yeah, so Sir Nate says, does anyone know what Israel meant by premise 1 about Jesus having two wills? So in the Calvinistic model, Jesus is a separate being than the Son. And so Jesus has some sort of human will, but his God will is exactly the same without differential from the God will. And so he has two natures, a God nature and a human nature, and he has two wills, the God will and the human will. And the human will and the human nature are not part of the God nature or the God will. And so they're two different things, because you can't add parts, you can't add any complication to the God parts. And so that's yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say that was another thing that was unfortunate about not having a rebuttal and him immediately going into asking me questions, because I wanted to ask him to start off with, where do you see the Bible teaching that Jesus has two wills in the scriptures? Oh, well, it's inferred based on, okay, so you're making a philosophical argument then.
Yeah, his answer was, yes, hey, I provided all the scripture. That's what he said to you when you asked that.
That was like, I tried to point that out too, like he said something at one point. I was like, so you have 15 passages of scriptures. I don't know whether it was 15 or 50 that he said, but and you went over those when? Like, he just like showed them on the screen, like, hey, here's my research. These passages teach my premises. Trust me.
It was really bad, Drew. It was really bad. Not you. There were times where like you would just sit there and smile as he's talking, and I would point it out on the screen. I'd be like, "Look at Drew. He knows Israel's losing this." It's like you just sit there and smile.
Did you notice at the end one time that I smiled? He said something like, and so this is trying to say that somebody forces or determines such a Did you just equate forces and determines?
Yeah.
And I can't say anything to you right now? Like what? I can't respond to this, and you just equated forces to determines.
Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks.
So Chris says, not quite me. Two wills are from the six ecumenical council, divine will and human will. They are linked to the nature instead of the person, nothing necessarily Calvinistic there. So I'm using Calvinism as a proxy for Platonism, and I think it's embedded in Platonistic metaphysics, where you have these different hypostases of reality, and so that's how I'm using the word there. So I feel like it is Calvinistic in the sense that it's Platonistic, but you could correct me if I'm wrong there.
I don't think, hey Steve, I don't think he will. I've seen stuff online where I don't think he has a favorable view of me. But I'd be up for it if Keith wants to debate Calvinism. It'd be fun. I like Keith. I think he's got a good sense of humor.
Prime Objective says, Drew, if you're intellectually honest, you're not going to claim you won. You were just destroyed. Drew, you should be so ashamed of yourself. His 17 premises. Like what's happening now? Are you in the shadow realm?
Are we in a horror movie now? Are you going to come through the screen and drag me into a well? What is this?
What is this? You're not going to claim you won. If
I don't know that I've actually claimed that I won. If I've just claimed that Israel didn't even remotely meet his burden of proof biblically.
Oh man,
it was bad, dude. It was bad. But you see, you're just not up to my intellectual caliber.
Listen. I had it ran through all these different people, and they all said I was right, Drew. So I win. I win the debate. I had a heresy counter, and you only got a couple checks, and so you're okay, but you're not quite there. You can consult me later about what heresies you.
He also kept telling me like what I believed about stuff. Like he brought in principle of alternate possibilities, and those words didn't come out of my mouth. And yeah, there's just
there were several times I'd hear you say, "Don't tell me what I believe," or "Why are you telling me what I believe?" There were several times I heard you catch him on that.
Yeah. Well, it's 1 a.m. here. I just thought I'd hop on and say, "Hey."
Right. No, we're grateful for it. So your perception of the debate. Do you think? Okay, so Bob, and your rule of debates is whoever promotes the debate, that's the person who won. Number one, are you going to promote the debate? And number two, do you think that Israel is going to promote the debate?
I'm not promoting this debate. and I think Israel is definitely going to promote the debate, but neither of which is for the reasons that you would expect. I don't know. Like maybe that means that I lost, but I was sitting there as he was going on and on at the end, and I was just like, I don't even know that I want to do a debate review on this. Like, I just want to move on. Like,
you don't want to do a debate review.
It was a mess. Here's the real question: will his 15 PhD team join him and endorse that debate argument and that opening statement? That's what I want to see. Let's see them go on his stream with him and endorse that line of argumentation for a debate. I want to see that.
Well,
if that doesn't happen, then I'm going to say foul, and I'm not going to believe a word Israel said about that.
I think it's really tragic because I think that if he had just done 1 or 2 arguments, we could have had a good conversation. And then when he said that he wanted 5 more minutes from Donnie, I was like, oh no, this is going to be really bad. And then we got on the pre-show and he was like, I've timed this out. I want to remind you, I have 20 minutes. I've timed this out a few times. It's going to be a push, and I'm like, oh, it's going to be a push for 20 minutes, man. Like, and I intentionally tried to keep mine right around 15 minutes. And it's just a bit of a tragedy that he could have picked 1 or 2 strong arguments and just stuck with those. But instead, he just decided to just throw all this stuff at the wall.
A 15-minute opening with a 5 to 10 minute rebuttal and then Q&A, and then a 5-minute close is beautiful. But Israel was so afraid of a debate that he insisted there not be any rebuttals, that he insisted on how to score a debate before you enter into it. And then, Mr. Moderator, are you going to abide by the terms that we set forth at the beginning of this? And it doesn't seem like you're doing that, Mr. Moderator. It's like Israel was so scared he had to be as in control as his impotent deity in order to win a debate. And that just shows how diminished of a view of God that he has. He had to control everything. He didn't have the intellect, the wisdom, or the command or the power to accomplish convincing the audience unless he was in control of everything. Like, I think this is a great representation of his diminished view of God. I would be promoting the snot out of this.
Well, you guys can convince me later to promote it. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll press you tomorrow. Say, hey, look, I know he wasn't a very good representative of his position, but it just makes these people look absolutely ridiculous. It's just the optics are all there. The optics are all aligned. Like you would not, if you promoted this debate, you would not be ashamed of your own role in this debate.
Fair enough. That's true. That's true enough.
Just speed up everything Israel says and put it like a transcript on, so it looks like those ads when they're talking about all the pharmaceutical side effects that you can have. You know,
yeah. I'll leave it to you to edit me together or something like that, and I'll put it on.
All right, we'll let you go to bed and have sweet dreams. But it was a very funny debate, and it was more entertaining than I expected it to be.
I'm so glad. I'm glad it was entertaining.
Your suffering brought us great joy, Drew. We appreciate you.
Worth it.
Like I would like 25 minutes to present one argument. Like what is this?
I didn't realize. Sorry, I know I'm supposed to be going to bed, but I didn't realize until the end of his whole thing, or maybe even partway through the Q&A, that it was one argument. And he had like 2 or 3 slides for like one premise of the argument. And I was like, oh man, I thought he was making like several different arguments here. It was hard to follow.
He made one argument the whole debate. Like the whole debate was one argument. It's so funny. I was like, why are you putting all your eggs in one basket? This is the worst way to do a debate. What is this? No one's following your argument and you only have one.
Go back tomorrow when you're doing dishes or playing with the kid or something. Put on our debate review and listen to what we thought about this while you're at.
I was listening to a little bit of it, and I heard Chris towards the beginning say, what was it? Or maybe it was here when we were just talking, and you were like, "Oh, was that what he was saying? That's what he was saying this whole time." And
yeah, like I didn't get his argument. What's happening?
I mean, I'm not a smart man, but I feel like I'm capable of understanding arguments, and it was hard. It was really hard to follow. All right, I'm signing off.
Good night, everybody.
All right.
Out of here as well.
All right. We'll cut off there, but I think this was a fruitful debate review. How to perform debates and how not to perform debates. You have to understand human nature, how people interact, how people conceive of things, how people perceive your bodily actions and your arguments, and that people don't necessarily align to your mental models. And so when Israel was trying to do these things where he has this mental perception of how the debate's gonna go, and then he's communicating to the audience in retrospect when those things didn't happen in the debate, it did not appear very well on his side, and people are not relating to him, or they don't empathize with the points he's trying to make. So not very good debate skills. I don't know if Israel's done debates before, but not good. There's a lot of learning points that he could pick up from this debate, how to do a debate. Drew did a lot better. Not the best debate in the world, but he did pretty well, enough to hold his own in this debate. And I think that a neutral viewer of this debate is going to take the open theist or provisionist side, non-Calvinist side, a lot better than they're going to take the Calvinist side, Israel's side. I don't think Israel's strategy should not be replicated in the future for people who want to win debates, regardless of subject content. All right, so we're going to cut off there tonight, but I thank everyone for coming and listening and providing comments and commentary. There's a lot of good comments in the side chat. Questions or comments, put that down below or start a thread on the God is Open Facebook group. Thank you for watching. Thank you for hanging out with us.